Chapter 890. You want to capture my Sect's hall master, so that makes you an enemy. When Jun Changshao finished speaking, the experts present all had looks of disdain on their faces. One of the experts said coldly, "Kid, I've heard of your falling star continent. Based on the level of the planar battlefield, I'm afraid you're only in the 9th echelon. Compared to the 9 heavens continent, you're nothing. What right do you have to be an enemy?" His words were harsh, but they were also true. In the face of absolute strength, weak existences were not even qualified to be an enemy. For example, Qin Haoran, the former leader of the 100 Sect Alliance, could jump around in front of Jun Changshao in the beginning. However, as the latter grew stronger, he was not even qualified to be an enemy. He could only be an ant at the foot of a mountain. You've just entered the battlefield, and haven't even developed your own territory yet. And you're already fantasizing about becoming an enemy of the 1st echelon. You're a typical example of treating yourself as your root. Slap. Before that expert could finish, Ding Xingwang walked out of the space with a hand on his neck. He said coldly, "You talk too much." "No." Bang! 5 types of powerful evil aura rushed into his body, causing his body to quickly turn black and then explode on the spot. The amiable-looking man and the glaring evil man frowned. This falling star continent martial artist dared to kill someone so brazenly in front of them. This person was quite arrogant. "Both of you," Jun Changshao said. "If the 9 heavens continent wants to participate, I don't mind using you guys to establish my might today." Establishing my might? The amiable-looking man's smile became even angrier, and the glaring evil man's anger became even stronger. They had been on the battlefield for so long, and had killed many red-named people. They had also met many arrogant people, but they had never seen such an arrogant and impudent little guy. "You're asking for it. How dare you provoke the 9 heavens continent martial artists like this? No one in the world can save you. How can you survive on the battlefield after offending the 1st echelon?" Everyone muttered in their hearts. The amiable-looking man said, "What's your name, little friend?" Jun Changshao said in a clear voice, "I am Jun Changshao, the Patriarch of the Azure Sun County of the Falling Star Continent." "Oh, it's Jun Patriarch. Sorry for the disrespect." The smile on the benevolent man's face deepened, and his eyes almost narrowed into a line. The cultivators who were familiar with his style hurriedly retreated as they thought, "The masters of the 9 heavens continent are about to make a move." The ferocious evil man at the side glared at the Purple King. He wished that he could immediately slap such an immoral person to death. The Purple King said indifferently, "If you keep looking, do you believe that this king will dig out your eyeballs?" Hoo-hoo. Right after Xiao Chen spoke, the evil man's robes suddenly swelled up, and a vast shock wave burst out, forming clouds that pressed down. At that moment, the stronghold area was filled with terrifying pressure. Hoo-hoo. The clouds and mist rushed down, as if they had turned into a magnificent army. TSK. The Purple King snorted coldly as he turned into a purple stream of light and charged over. He condensed a fist and punched at the clouds and mist pressing down. "You are courting death," the ferocious evil man shouted coldly, and a few strands of his white beard fluttered. The shock wave that erupted from his body poured into the clouds, and instantly condensed into a seemingly corporeal arhat. As expected of a powerful Earth Realm expert, when this move was executed, the entire world seemed to have lost all color. Boom! 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 The Purple King was not someone to be trifled with. He punched out with a force that seemed to be able to split rivers and seas, directly breaking all the arhats that were attacking him. Fancy moves were nothing but paper tigers in the face of absolute power. Hoo-hoo. After breaking dozens of corporeal arhats, the Purple King was still charging forward. In the end, he directly pierced through the clouds and charged towards the ferocious evil man. The latter clearly did not expect the other party to break the Cloud Realm Arhat technique so easily. There was no time to consider, because the other party had already attacked. Clear heart not. Buzz! The ferocious evil man waved his hand, and a mirror-like defensive barrier condensed in front of him, emitting a heavy aura. Boom! At this moment, the Purple King's powerful fist directly smashed into the barrier. The area of contact immediately rippled and spread in all directions. Buzz buzz buzz. The space affected by the ripples distorted, and even gradually collapsed. All the cultivators were dumbfounded. The aftershock of this punch could shatter space. The other party's strength was definitely not an ordinary Earth Realm expert. The ferocious evil man also realized this. But he was not feeling good, because the barrier he condensed was about to collapse under the huge impact. Break. Monster Monarch Z Craggy roared and punched the surface again. Bang! In the end, under the explosive punch, the barrier condensed in front of the ferocious evil man instantly collapsed, turning into fragments that scattered and disappeared into the void. Scram! The Purple King condensed a purple fist and punched. Boom! Before the ferocious evil man, whose defensive barrier was broken, could fly out, his chest took the punch, and he immediately fell down like a cannonball. Bang! 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 The ferocious evil man's scalp stuck to the ground as he flew into the distance. When he came to a stop, a chasm several meters wide and 300 meters long appeared in his field of vision. Holy shit! Jun Changshao exclaimed, so awesome? He knew that the Purple King's cultivation had recovered before it was sealed. However, he did not expect that when it truly erupted, it would be so strong that an Earth Realm expert could not withstand it. All the cultivators were dumbfounded. They had thought that with the appearance of the Nine Heavens Continent's experts, this ferocious man would definitely be unlucky. However, after a few moves, he was blasted away. Humph! The Purple King hovered in the air, his body enveloped by a purple light. He said trash. Night Emperor often said this word. However, at this moment, when he said it, it was undoubtedly more qualified and imposing. Boom! Suddenly, an explosion came from behind him. A heavy fist condensed from energy smashed fiercely on the Purple King's back. This punch was very powerful. It caused ripples that also disturbed the space. However, the Purple King, who suddenly suffered the attack, still stood in his original position. He did not even move forward a little. This! The benevolent man crossed his hands and opened his narrowed eyes. His gaze flickered with disbelief. He had seized the opportunity and used a powerful martial technique. The naked guy should not have stood in his original position. He should have been sent flying like the ferocious evil man. However, the result was that he was as steady as Mount Tai. Holy shit! Jun Changshao cursed, so it's a smiling tiger. Despicable guy die. The Purple King turned around, gathered purple energy, and charged over angrily. Boom! 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 The earth-shattering purple energy exploded and condensed into a dense fist mark in midair. The kind-hearted man was immediately bombarded into a sorry state, and he had nowhere to hide. All the cultivators were completely dumbfounded. The two Earth Realm experts of the Nine Heavens Continent could not do anything to that exhibitionist. Chapter 891. Bang! Bang! The purple light flashed through the air and exploded at times. Benevolent man wanted to resist, but all he could do was try his best to resist the overbearing power. All the martial artists were stunned. Why weren't they stunned? Because the Purple King's attack was too fast. They couldn't see his movements at all. Boom! A few minutes later, the ground shook and dust rolled up. When everything disappeared, a deep pit appeared. Benevolent man, who had been smiling, was lying in the deepest part of the pit with bruises all over his face. Ding Xingwang and the King of 100 Hills' mouths twitched. They thought that they would have to fight hard against the two Earth-level masters from the Nine Heavens Continent, but they were all killed by that guy. Swoosh! The Purple King landed slowly and hovered a few feet above the pit. He raised his hand and said, "You can't even defeat me with a sneak attack. What's the point of living in this world?" Huff, huff, huff! Purple energy burst out from his body and turned into solid fists. It was obvious that he was going to ravage benevolent man. "Leave it to me." Jun Changshao stopped him. The Purple Craggy Monster King withdrew his energy, but just as he was about to leave, he saw the guy put his hands on his chest. His expression collapsed as he spread his legs and roared, "Look, it's a big pervert! Pervert!" Everyone looked over and saw that guy placing his hands on his chest and making a heart shape. After shouting go, he pushed it out and said, "My precious baby!" Whoosh! the heaven origin soul-suppressing tower flew out and fell into the deep pit. It quickly expanded and finally, with a loud rumble, it suppressed the benevolent man. Jie. Everyone was silent. All the martial artists' expressions froze. Was this something a man would do? Was this something a man could say? Thinking of Jun Changzhao's actions and words, everyone couldn't help but shiver. Damn it! That was disgusting. Wah! A man recalled Jun Changzhao's actions and couldn't help but vomit. Wah wah wah! A chain reaction occurred, and many martial artists started vomiting. Not only them, but Lu Qianqian, He Wudi, Jiangya, and the others were either frowning or twitching their mouths. However, Jun Changzhao, who had done such a shameful act in public, did not blush at all. He muttered in his heart, "Why isn't there a reward? Could it be that the guy hasn't been seriously injured to the point of fainting?" Shwa. He waved his hand and retrieved the heaven origin soul-suppressing pagoda. Sure enough, although the benevolent man who was suppressed at the bottom looked worse than before, he was only seriously injured. He still had consciousness and could open his eyes. Damn it. He angrily let out a weak voice and was about to silently use some kind of escape technique. At this moment, Jun Changzhao made another heart-shaped gesture. The kind-looking, kind-hearted man happened to see this, and his eyes suddenly became dull. He swore that he had walked a lot in his life, eaten a lot of rice, traveled a lot, and had seen a lot of things, but he had never seen a man do such a shameful thing. Pooh! Unable to suppress his injury, he directly spat out blood. Jun Patriarch's shameful action made an earth-level martial artist unable to control his mind and spit out blood on the spot. It could be seen how terrifying the lethality was. Go, my darling. Pooh! Hearing this, the kind-looking, kind-hearted man spat out blood again, and his thoughts of using a secret escape technique were interrupted. Huff huff suddenly, his vision became incomparably dark, and the heaven origin soul-suppressing pagoda ruthlessly pressed down. Boom! The earth trembled again, and a desolate aura wreaked havoc in the surroundings. Congratulations to the participant for taking down the first martial artist of the Nine Heavens continent and obtaining 100 achievement points. The female system prompt sounded in his ears. Jun Changzhao waved his hand in satisfaction and kept the heaven origin soul-suppressing pagoda. However, the kind-looking, kind-hearted man had only fainted in the pit, and his heartbeat and breathing could still be heard. Thus, he shook his head and said, "Using this thing to kill an earth-level martial artist, I need to smash it a few more times." Wah! The Purple King, who was far away, vomited. After seeing Jun Changxiao's shameful action 3 times in a row, he finally couldn't hold it in anymore. Jiangya and the Ning brothers' expressions were very ugly. After all, forcefully holding it in was really harmful to their bodies. Under the gaze of so many people, doing shameful actions and shouting shameful words in public, this was definitely not something an ordinary person could do, because they still wanted face. Jun Patriarch obviously wanted face too. However, as long as he could defeat his opponent, he wouldn't care about it. There's one more. Turning around, Jun Changxiao smiled and looked into the distance. Brat! Brat! The evil man stood up with difficulty and glared angrily as he said, "This old man will remember this." The Purple King's strength made him realize that he was definitely not a match for him, so he already had the thought of escaping. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this moment, Ding Xingwang and the King of 100 Hills appeared out of thin air. The two of them stood in the air, their vast auras exploding without restraint. Instantly, the surrounding space was distorted. Saint-level experts could travel through space, but if they messed up the environment, they wouldn't dare to do so. This was because if they accidentally traveled to the deepest layer of the void, they would never be able to come out again. "Humph," the evil man sneered and said, "You think you can stop me like this? Naive." Swish swish swish. He quickly formed hand seals and chanted, 9 heavens 8 desolations 7 stars 6. Huff huff. Before he could finish the chant, the purple palm print mercilessly pressed down. Boom! The power of the giant palm print directly pressed the evil man to the ground. His meridians were all damaged. Go, my darling. Huff huff. The giant heaven origin soul-suppressing pagoda pressed down from above. The evil man could only roar helplessly. No. Boom, boom, boom. This nine heavens land expert was like a benevolent person, directly fainting from the suppression. Jun Changshao was really something. He let the Purple King be responsible for half-crippling him. And then he came to pick up the leftovers. Congratulations to the participant for defeating an Earth expert. You have received 20 merit points. Jun Changshao ignored the notification and hurriedly communicated with the artifact spirit in the pagoda. He said, I didn't do the heart gesture just now. How did I throw the heaven origin soul-suppressing pagoda out? It's like this, Master. Arya explained. As long as you shout the chant, it can be activated normally. I added the heart gesture myself. Jun Changxiao's expression gradually stiffened. After all this fuss, as long as he shouted go my darling, the treasure would be activated. He actually did the heart gesture several times in a row. And in front of so many people. Why didn't you say so earlier? Master didn't ask. Jun Changxiao glanced at the dumbfounded cultivators around him from the corner of his eyes, and clutched at his hair, as if he was about to collapse. My handsome face has been completely lost today. Chapter 892. Outside the stronghold it was silent. The expressions of the thousands of warriors present were still frozen. Part of it was because of their shameless actions, and part of it was because of the 2 Earth-level warriors from the 9 Heavens continent being beaten to death. Everyone. Jun Changxiao sat on a chair, crossed his legs and said, whether you are qualified to become an enemy of the first-tier planes is not based on words but on strength. Fear gradually rose in the eyes of the warriors. 2 Earth-level warriors were beaten to death in such a short time. The Falling Star continent was definitely a tough nut to crack. They couldn't afford to offend them. Retreat! Whoosh! 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 The warriors immediately used their movement techniques and flew away, as if they were rushing to be reincarnated. Jun Changxiao didn't order them to chase. After all, it was his second time coming to the plain battlefield, and he had killed many in just a few hours. The Purple King and the others were also red-named. They first rested for a while before rolling up their sleeves and continuing. Since they were here, they had to have a good time. First, they heavily injured Qiuanxi from the Scarlet Sea continent, then dealt with the 2 Earth-level warriors from the 9 Heavens continent. Jun Changxiao's prestige was quite successful. The best proof of this was the fact that the martial practitioners attracted by the 3 streaks of red light saw the martial practitioners from other planes fleeing from the targeted area, as if they were fleeing for their lives. They were puzzled and asked about the situation. What? The kind-hearted and evil people from the 9 Heavens continent were beaten to death? Impossible. When the warriors confirmed the authenticity of the matter, they hurriedly gave up on the idea of catching the wanted criminals and turned back the way they came. Even Earth-level warriors couldn't defeat them. Wouldn't it be suicide if they went? The Falling Star continent can't be offended. Forget it, forget it. Let's just watch the show. Don't lose your life before you get 500 merit points. That's reasonable, that's reasonable. Many warriors from other planes were afraid of the Falling Star continent. Of course, some people were thinking that the 9 Heavens continent might not give up just because 2 Earth-level warriors were beaten to death. They believed that it wouldn't be long before they sent more warriors to cause trouble. In the Scarlet Sea continent, many warriors from this plane had been killed by the Falling Star continent, so it wouldn't be over. If that's the case, someone said, won't we have a good show to watch? The Falling Star continent must have just been designated to enter the planar battlefield. After offending so many planes in a row, they even offended the first Tier 9 Heavens continent. I heard that their leader is called Jun Changxiao. He is the patriarch of the strongest sect in the Falling Star continent. He is young, but he is very arrogant. The planar battlefield isn't like our own Earth realm. If you act too arrogantly, you'll definitely have to pay a price. In just a short time, news of Jun Changxiao of the Falling Star continent and the 9 Heavens continent's experts being abused spread like wildfire in the planar battlefield, becoming the focus of everyone's discussion. Wait, what about the benevolent man and the scowling evil man? Boom. Boom. Outside the falling star continent's stronghold, Wuxia planted 2 large pillars and tied the fainted benevolent man and fiendish man to the pillars. Invincible, Jun Changshao sat in the stronghold and drank a mouthful of tea. Be careful, don't hurt them. If you do, it won't be easy to explain to the 9 heavens continent. Wuxia was speechless. When you used the pagoda to suppress them, you didn't seem to be merciful. Patriarch, Jiangye said worriedly. What if they send more experts? Even a rabbit will bite when cornered. Jun Changshao smiled coldly and said, if they don't cooperate or bully others, we'll just kill them. Elder Ge said, it's not hard to see from the eyes of the warriors from other planes that the 9 heavens continent seems to be very powerful. It's not good for us to incur their enmity when we just arrived, right? It's not good. Jun Changshao put down his teacup and said, but at this point, there's no turning back. We can only accept life and death and fight if we don't accept it. He didn't want to become enemies with the high-level planes. He only wanted to develop and expand his stronghold in the planar battlefield, and then focus on the Scarlet Sea continent and Lingyun continent. However, some troubles couldn't be avoided. For example, the 2 Earth rankers from the 9 heavens continent. They had to take the red-named little dragon, and the other 2. Did he have to wash his neck clean and send them over? Humph. The Purple King put on a brand new school uniform and said indifferently, if they dare to come again, this hall master will put them all down. Invincible, Jun Changshao said. The corpses outside are an eyesore. Think of a way to get rid of them. Yes. Wuxia walked out and piled up all the corpses on the ground. Most of the corpses came from the Scarlet Sea continent and the Lingyun continent. And this was the result of Jun Changshao, who couldn't forget about him. Falling Star Continent. In the altar, a few elders sat cross-legged together, discussing something. From time to time, a conflicted expression would appear on their faces. Everyone, the high priest sighed. Relying on the only channels I have, I found out that there are more than 300 planes in the planar battlefield. More than 300? The expressions of the elders changed drastically. According to the minimum of 2,000 people sent in, there would be at least 600,000 Emperor stage rankers. They didn't dare to imagine this scene at all. The high priest continued. The levels on the battlefield are divided into heaven, earth, black, and yellow. The planes are also divided into 9 echelons. Our falling star continent should belong to the lowest 9th echelon. Everyone shook their heads bitterly. There are 4 in the first echelon. They are the 9 heavens continent, the vast continent, the longing continent, and the Saros continent. High priest, are the first echelon very strong? Someone asked. The high priest said seriously, according to the information we have, the 4 planes in the first echelon are very powerful. Even during the falling star continent's most glorious ancient era, it couldn't compete with them. Everyone fell silent. The high priest continued. Although the 4 in the first echelon are strong, they have already completed the missions given by the upper realm. Martial artists mainly focus on searching for treasures and training. They won't easily target other planes. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. But, the high priest frowned and said, the other planes aren't obedient. From what I know, the Scarlet Sea continent, the Lingyun continent, and other planes like to bully new planes. What level? I can't find out for now, but it's definitely higher than our falling star continent. High priest, are you saying that when we enter the dimensional battlefield 5 years later, we should pay special attention to the martial artists from the Scarlet Sea continent and the Lingyun continent? That's right, the high priest said seriously. As long as we meet them, run if you can. Don't fight them head-on. What if they chase us relentlessly? Someone asked. The high priest sighed, his eyes filled with vicissitudes of life. Then we can only resign ourselves to fate. High priest, an old man said resolutely. The dimensional battlefield 5 years later will be a disaster for our falling star continent. We have already made up our minds to participate in it. This kind of thing can't be resolved with determination, without true strength even if you go. The high priest didn't continue and changed his words. Tell this to City Lord Han and the higher-ups of the major sections. Let them be mentally prepared. Yes, in a short time, The experts who were selected to go to the dimensional battlefield 5 years later all received the news. They all murmured with frowns. The Scarlet Sea continent, the Lingyun continent. We must be careful if we meet them there. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, flames burned in the dimensional battlefield. The corpses of the martial artists from the Scarlet Sea continent and the Lingyun continent were gradually incinerated into nothingness. If the experts from the Falling Star continent saw the martial artists, they were worried about being cremated just like that. Who knew what kind of interesting expressions would appear on their faces? Chapter 893. After a few battles, the stronghold in the Starfall continent had expanded quite a bit. Jun Changshao sat in front of the main hall and murmured, "Expanding this place to the size of a town is a piece of cake." The system said, "With the strength of the Purple King and the others, expanding their territory is easy, but they will also offend more planes and become the target of public criticism." "It doesn't matter." Jun Changshao shrugged and said, "Others can't invade." The stronghold was equivalent to an absolute safe zone. This was his capital to be fearless in the battlefield. Moreover, even if they could invade, it would be fine. He had the teleportation door. At most he could just take his disciples and leave. The plain battlefield was Gosheng's backyard. If they wanted to come and play, they could. If they did not want to leave, as long as they did not stop for a year, the stronghold would always exist. The female system prompted, "Dear participant, once the stronghold has reached a certain size, it will not be permanently protected." "What do you mean?" Jun Changshao was stunned. The female system explained, "According to the rules of the upper realm, when a plane stronghold has been built to a certain size, it will be recognized as having a foothold. At that time, it can declare war on other planes, and vice versa. It can also be declared war on by other planes. This is called a plane attack and defense war." What are the consequences of being declared war and losing? If the stronghold is breached, all efforts will turn into nothing. Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. Did this mean that it was like a siege in a game? Or was it that the battlefield opened up by the upper realm was actually a game, and he and the warriors from other planes could only follow their rules and move like chess pieces? "I'm a little unhappy." Jun Changshao clenched his fist. As the protagonist of his own fate, he naturally did not want to be a chess piece in someone else's game. "Of course," the female system said, "if the party who declared war can break through the stronghold of the party who was declared war, not only can they expand their territory and receive their spoils of war, they can also obtain a huge amount of merit points as a reward." Jun Changshao's eyes lit up immediately. Although he didn't know what kind of good things he could exchange his merit points for, the fact that all the martial artists were willing to risk everything to kill him after his red name meant that he was very important. Jun Changshao rubbed his chin and said, "When my stronghold reaches a certain level, I can declare war on the other continents and then openly plunder their resources?" The system was speechless. This guy had just killed so many cultivators from different planes, and he even had a grudge with the Nine Heavens continent. Shouldn't he be thinking that once his stronghold developed, others would declare war on him? "It's like this," the female system said. Jun Changshao grinned and said, "It seems quite interesting." This kind of mechanism was quite interesting. However, for many years, there had been almost no instances of a dimensional war being declared. This was because when a stronghold had developed to a certain scale, having the right to declare war, and being declared war, would definitely be based on strength. When two planes started a war, even if one side could be wiped out, they would have to pay a heavy price. Unless it was an irreconcilable grudge, neither side would waste a large number of warriors and resources to attack the other side's stronghold, because in the end, the losses would often outweigh the gains. 2,000 miles away from the Falling Star continent's stronghold, there was a stronghold that looked like a city. It was surrounded by walls, and the word Scarlet Sea Continent fluttered on the city walls. That's right. This was the Scarlet Sea Continent's stronghold. Judging from the size and majestic buildings, this plane was definitely not a low-level one. Within the main hall, an elder with long hair sat at the head of the hall, his brows furrowed. His eyes were filled with worry and anger. There were 4 old men, sitting at the head of the table. Their faces were also filled with worry. Palace Lord. At this moment, an elder in a long robe walked in and shook his head. Elder Che's injuries are too severe. I'm afraid he'll need several years to recover. Slap. The elder with long hair slapped the armrest and stood up angrily. Killing so many of my Jade Sea Palace's warriors and injuring Elder Che. This is unforgivable. His name was Hong Yao, the Jade Sea Palace's palace lord of the Scarlet Sea continent. Because this plane had already established itself on the battlefield, after internal discussion, they decided to send a faction to guard it every 5 years. Coincidentally, it was Jade Sea Palace's turn to guard the Scarlet Sea continent's stronghold this time. In terms of the Falling Star continent's level, this sect was definitely not inferior to a first-rate sect that was even stronger than Taishian Shengzong. Why? Because not only was Palace Lord Hong at the earth level, but the 4 elders below him were also comparable to Wu Sheng. Including the injured Che Yuanxi, this sect had at least 6 Wu Sheng. The first-rate sects of the Falling Star continent definitely couldn't compare. No wonder City Lord Han and the others didn't have much hope of entering the planar battlefield. And this was only one of the Scarlet Sea continent's sections. If they sent a few more, they might not be able to defeat them even with the entire Falling Star continent's strength. Palace Lord. Bring some men and kill them. The elders below him were all filled with righteous indignation. At least 70% of the Scarlet Sea continent's warriors that Jun Changshao had killed on the battlefield were Jade Sea Palace disciples, so they definitely couldn't tolerate this. Moreover, the Scarlet Sea continent had been in the planar battlefield for at least 500 or 600 years. Although they weren't the top echelon, they had always been bullying others. When had they ever been bullied by others and bullied so badly? This old man is willing to go out and bring that Jun Changshao's head here as a sacrifice to the dead. A Jade Sea Palace elder said angrily. Palace Lord Hong sat down and said, I heard that 9 heavens continents Ci Mei and Furious, I were also heavily injured. We don't have to take the lead. The disciples and higher-ups had suffered heavy casualties. And old Che had also been beaten to the point of losing his ability to fight. This made him furious, but he didn't lose his mind. He decided not to take the lead and just wait and see. Palace Lord. At this moment, someone came to report. 9 heavens continents people have sent out 9 Earth-level experts. They're heading towards the Falling Star continent's stronghold. Heh. Palace Lord Hong wasn't surprised. They're going pretty fast. Whoosh. Whoosh. In the sky above the battlefield, 9 majestic streams of light flew out, startling all the cultivators in all directions. 9 heavens continents 9 star elders. They're heading towards the Falling Star continent's stronghold. There's going to be a good show. Let's go. All the warriors rushed towards the Falling Star continent's stronghold in groups of 3 to 5. Along the way, they all thought that the 9 heavens continent had sent out 9 Earth-level experts at once. The newcomers would definitely be scared silly. Jun Changshao, who was drinking tea, felt the 9 auras outside and immediately walked out. As soon as he stopped in front of the hall, he saw 9 powerful experts hovering in the sky. They were 9 old men in blue robes who were about 70 years old. Some had sideburns, some had goatees, and some were bald. Although they all had different appearances, the aura around them was thick and vigorous. Just one look, and one could tell that their strength was definitely at the earth level. So many martial saints. Ding Xingwang was secretly shocked. It was already good enough to see 2 Wu Sheng in the Falling Star continent. Now that another plane had sent 9 of them, it was indeed a little shocking. Jun Changshao sat on a chair and put his right foot on it. He smiled. Are you here to ransom someone? Chapter 894. After Jun Changshao finished speaking, the Purple King walked out of the stronghold and stopped in front of the 2 elders. He raised his left and right hands and directly grabbed their heads, the corner of his mouth raised into a sinister smile. The eyes of the 9 Earth-level powerhouses immediately turned cold. In fact, they had already seen the restrained, kind-looking man and the angry man. They didn't save them because they thought that since they were here, if the Falling Star continent had good eyesight, they would definitely obediently release the two of them. It was a typical case of taking themselves too seriously. If June Patriarch had good eyesight, he wouldn't have tied them to the pillar. 9. If you want them to live, exchange them with the martial arts resources that your plane uses for cultivation, such as crystal cores, medicinal herbs, ores, and spirit stones. Every plane had a different realm system, but the martial arts resources were roughly the same. The Nine Heavens continent that Jun Changxiao mentioned really did have them. However, when the 9 Earth-level powerhouses heard what he said, their old faces became even longer. At this time, they understood that the falling star continent had tied up the kind-looking man and the angry man to blackmail them. Kid, the bald old man sneered. You really have guts, daring to blackmail my 9 Heavens continent. The timid will starve to death, and the bold will eat to death. Jun Changxiao leaned forward, his hands on his legs, and laughed. Since I'm going to die either way, I'd rather eat to death than starve to death. The bearded old man said. I'm just afraid that if I give you something, you won't be able to eat to death. As long as you bring the ransom, you don't have to worry about the rest. Jun Changxiao said. The bald old man rubbed his shiny head and said, What if we don't take out anything to ransom them? Jun Changxiao casually took out a recommendation ticket from a reader from his space ring, gently tore it into strips, and said with a smile, Of course I'll kill them. Kill them? The bald old man narrowed his eyes and said, If you dare, don't even think about taking half a step out of the stronghold in the future. They couldn't enter, but they could block the door. The falling star continent's territory was only so small. They definitely needed to develop, and one that came out would be destroyed. Jun Changxiao was a little depressed. He was the one who controlled the 2 Earth-level powerhouses of their continent, but he had actually fallen to the point where he was being threatened instead. This was too embarrassing. No, he had to do something. Pa! Jun Changxiao snapped his fingers. Boom! The Purple King received the order and punched the old man in the chest. Even though he was unconscious, the attack had affected his damaged meridians, and he immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing their own people being treated so cruelly even though they were heavily injured, the 9 elders all glared angrily. The bald man said coldly, Brat, you're courting death. Cut the fucking crap. Jun Changxiao said impatiently, 100 natural spirit stones per head, 1 million high-grade crystalline cores, and 1 million high-grade medicinal herbs. If they can't take it out, I'll kill them immediately. It was too tiring to pretend to be civilized, so he had to be barbaric and overbearing. Boom! The Purple King was very cooperative with the Patriarch. He punched the fiend's chest again, fully demonstrating what it meant to be a villain. The 9 Earth-level powerhouses' eyes kept changing, and the anger and killing intent emitted from their bodies became more and more intense. A low-level plane actually dared to extort them in public. This was intolerable. Boom! The Purple King punched again. Wah! The fiend spat out blood again. If this guy was still conscious, he would definitely break down and say, Why do you always hit me? Why don't you hit him? When the Purple King attacked consecutively, the martial artists from various planes had already flown over and witnessed the whole process. Their expressions immediately became interesting. Tying Ci Mei and the fiend to the pillar, and letting the 9-star continent pay the ransom, and killing the hostages if they didn't pay. The falling star continent was really bold. Or, knowing that there was no way to reconcile, they simply chose to go all out? Awesome. Really awesome. The martial artists from various planes were full of admiration for Jun Changxiao's style. Of course, they also knew that although it was cool to do this, they would also completely offend the 9 Heavens continent. They could forget about surviving in the plane battlefield in the future. Boom! Kacha, the Purple King, punched again, and the fiend's sternum was shattered. Seeing their own people being trampled on like this, the 9 Earth-level powerhouses were furious. Their killing intent spread throughout the whole area, and the space started to distort under the 9 explosive forces. The plane battlefield space barrier was very thick, but it couldn't withstand the collective release of so many powerhouses. Retreat, retreat! The martial artists who were watching the show hurriedly retreated further away, afraid that they would be implicated. However, No matter how the Nine Heavens continent's powerhouses attacked, the falling star continent's stronghold wasn't disturbed. Patriarch. Old Ding transmitted his voice. I'm afraid they won't pay the ransom. Be careful, they might attack and snatch them away. Okay. Jun Changshao said. Hall Master Z, you must control those two guys well. Don't let the Nine Heavens continent snatch them away. He could have killed Ci Mei and the Fiend, but since he had already obtained the merit points, why not use them to their fullest and earn more martial arts resources for himself? Humph. The Purple King sneered and said, as long as I'm here, no one can snatch me away. He was so confident when he spoke softly. 8 layers of space bind. Suddenly, the bald old man shouted angrily, and the surrounding space immediately rippled. The sand and dust that were originally drifting with the wind became still as if they were frozen in time. Space martial arts? Ding Xingwang's expression changed drastically. Space-type martial arts existed in the Falling Star continent, but they were extremely rare, and they were lost after the Battle of the Gods. Be careful, Ding Xingwang shouted. He's going to snatch them. Rumble. As soon as he finished speaking, a violent force came from outside the stronghold. The originally bound space was suddenly unsealed, and dust was swirled up. Whoosh! The bald old man, who had used his space martial arts to seal the space, and tried to snatch Ci Mei and the Fiend, flew out of the dust. Then he stopped in midair in a sorry state. Do you think I don't exist? The Purple King was completely naked, and the school uniform that he had just worn was destroyed. How is this possible? The bald old man was in disbelief. Although the 8 layers of space bind couldn't completely seal the space, it could at least seal it for a few breaths of time. It would be no problem to take advantage of this opportunity to rescue them. But in the end, when he rushed over, that guy threw a heavy punch. He wasn't bound by the space at all. No, it shouldn't be. 5 Wuxian worked together to seal the Demon King. It was a bit of a fantasy for him to control it alone. Go! The bearded old man shouted coldly, and immediately flew down. Whoosh! 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 The other 4 Earth-level powerhouses moved together. It was impossible to ransom them, so they could only use their strength to snatch them. They didn't believe that the 9 of them couldn't snatch Ci Mei and the Fiend back from an opponent, who seemed to be of the same level. Trash! The Purple King sneered in the face of the 5 Earth-level powerhouses. Then he opened his hands, and a violent energy suddenly appeared around him. Then, he rushed to the sky like a curtain of light. What a strong demon chi! This guy isn't human. Chapter 895. When the 5 Earth-level powerhouses sensed the violent aura, their expressions changed. Huff huff! At this moment, a light screen that seemed to reach the clouds came crashing down like a huge wave. The whole world instantly became dark. Seeing the Purple King make such a big commotion, Jun Changshao was both surprised and gratified. Using delicacies to control this guy and make him work for me is the wisest choice. The 9 star elders from the Falling Star continent were very powerful. Ding Xingwang could only contend against one of them. It would be impossible for him to fight against so many of them. The Purple King, who had recovered his strength before being sealed, was not afraid at all, especially when facing the 5 Earth-level powerhouses. He even dared to fight them head-on. Jun Changshao had definitely profited greatly by controlling him. How much he could do in the dimensional battlefield would depend on the upper limit of this guy's strength. Boom! 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 In an instant, the purple energy that came crashing down like a wave collided with the 5 Earth-level powerhouses. The whole space shook violently, finally unable to withstand the force, and started to collapse. All the martial artists were dumbfounded. This kind of chaotic battle between Earth-level powerhouses was rare, even in the dimensional battlefield. Moreover, the wanted purple-haired exhibitionist was too terrifying. He dared to fight against 5 Earth-level powerhouses so directly? Luckily we didn't attack earlier. Otherwise, we would have become corpses long ago. Many martial artists secretly rejoiced that they did not lose their rationality for 500 merit points. Swish! Swish! At this moment, the bearded man and the goateed elder flew out amidst the huge energy waves. Their bodies emitted a dazzling light, as they gathered a violent force and pressed down. Their original intention was not to fight, but to snatch people. Get lost! The Purple King shouted angrily, his left and right fists striking the void. At the same time, the purple energy formed a huge fist and directly clashed with the two Earth-level powerhouses. Ka. The ground under his feet shattered, extending out endlessly. Boom! Boom! A deafening explosion was heard. The bearded man and the goateed man collided with the Purple King head-on and retreated quickly, their expressions ugly. This non-human fellow's physical strength was extremely terrifying. Only beasts that focused on tempering their bodies and strength could do this. What made them even more certain was that their other two companions had seized the opportunity to rush over, condensing earth-shattering killing moves to attack. However, the Purple King had blocked them with his physical body and stood proudly where he was. Oh my god! That guy's physical defense is too terrifying. All the martial artists exclaimed in horror. An Earth-ranked powerhouse could turn him into ashes with a raise of his hand. Now, when he used a martial technique that could make the heavens and the earth lose its color, his opponent didn't even take a step back. This scene was extremely terrifying. The Purple King's eyes flashed with rage after taking the attack. Hoo! The violent energy gathered in mid-air and formed a fist, directly sending the two Nine Heavens continent martial artists flying. He didn't use any martial arts techniques. From the beginning to the end, he had been relying on his valiant physical strength to contend with the few Earth-level characters. Regardless of whether it was his aura or might, he wasn't any weaker than his opponents. This was a monster king from the upper realm. He had only recovered to the state before he was sealed, but he was already able to contend with 5 Wuxia without falling into a disadvantageous position. If he had reached his previous peak, who in the lower realm would be able to rival him? Awesome, Jun Changxiao said in admiration. Jiangya, the Ning brothers, and the others were stunned. They didn't expect that the exhibitionist who would rip his clothes off so easily actually had such terrifying combat power. He thought to himself, this guy came down from a high-level plane like me. How strong was he in the past? Whoosh! Just at this moment, the space trembled slightly. Ding Xinguang flew out from the dark, gathering the power of the 5 ultimate techniques in his palm and attacking. The sudden sneak attack was impossible to guard against. That Earth-ranked powerhouse was sent flying by the Purple King, and his body was temporarily unbalanced. He couldn't dodge at all, and could only take the palm print with his back. With a bang, he fell to the ground. Hiss! He stood up with difficulty, his face slightly ferocious. At this moment, a black palm print appeared on his back. 5 types of evil qi were madly attacking his meridians and mind. Although they couldn't do anything to him for a while, they had to divert their attention to resist and neutralize them, which was equivalent to weakening their combat power. Whoosh whoosh. Just as Ding Xinguang's sneak attack succeeded, 2 Earth-ranked powerhouses from the Nine Heavens continent attacked from both sides. They were very fast. They were very strong. Ding Xinguang couldn't use space travel to dodge, so he could only gather the 5 ultimate techniques and attack one of them. As for the other, he left it to boom. The King of 100 Hills rushed over quickly and suddenly reached out his hand to block the Earth-ranked powerhouse's attack. Relying on the unique strength of the beast race, he sent his opponent flying. Boom! Without the pressure from the other side, Ding Xinguang successfully exchanged a blow with the Earth-ranked powerhouse on the left. The two were evenly matched, and they both took a few steps back. This guy isn't human either. Everyone looked at the King of 100 Hills and felt his violent aura. They wondered, is the falling star continent a world dominated by beasts? Whoosh whoosh. While everyone was guessing, the King of 100 Hills bent down, and his back bulged rapidly. His body suddenly enlarged, and he took on the form of a giant eyeball beast. Die! His giant arm pressed down on one of the Earth-ranked powerhouses like a mountain. Under the explosion of power, the space was compressed and cracked. Oh no! The powerhouse who was targeted was shocked. He couldn't care less about whether his movement technique was graceful or not, and he fled in an extremely sorry state. Boom! Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Although he barely dodged, the King of 100 Hills' other hand pressed down again, and his speed and strength were even faster than his other hand. Boom! The Earth-ranked powerhouse dodged the first palm, but he couldn't dodge the second one. He was instantly pressed into the pit by the mountain-like palm. The King of 100 Hills didn't stop there. He retracted his hand and raised his foot to stomp on the ground. A giant eyeball stomped on the ground crazily, and the scene was extremely beautiful. Boom! 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 The ground shook, and large cracks appeared on the ground. When the King of 100 Hills stopped, the Earth-ranked powerhouse was lying in the center of the pit, covered in blood. He was also heavily injured. The 9 Heavens continent had sent 9 Earth-ranked powerhouses, but in terms of strength, Ding Xingwang and the King of 100 Hills might not be weak. Beautiful. June Patriarch smiled. Of the 9 Earth-ranked powerhouses, 1 was injured, and 1 was beaten up badly. The remaining 7 were much easier to deal with. At first, June Patriarch thought that the other party would use the martial arts resources to ransom the people, and that would be a happy ending. Now that the Purple King's performance was so terrifying, he had a bold idea. He wanted to keep all 9 of them here, to increase the bargaining chip with the 9 Heavens continent. Hall Master Z. Jun Changshao transmitted his voice. Don't be passive. If you can deal with them, do it. Okay. The Purple King's eyes flashed with fighting spirit. With a bang, he flew up and charged toward the Earth-ranked powerhouses with a terrifying purple power. He had long wanted to rush out, but the Patriarch had ordered him to watch over the hostages. Once this guy went out, the kind-looking man and the angry-looking man would lose their guard. It should be a good time to snatch the hostages, but the 7 Earth-ranked powerhouses didn't have such thoughts, because they were all targeted. Chapter 896. That's right. 3 of the 9 Heavens continent's 7 Earth-level powerhouses were targeted by the falling star continent. 1 was Ding Xingwang. 1 was the King of 100 Hills. The remaining 5 were targeted by the Purple King. The bald guy said angrily, "Kill this madman. The other 2 are nothing to fear." These people were not stupid. They knew that the Purple King was the strongest. As long as they killed him, the remaining 2 would not be a problem. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 5 Earth-level powerhouses rushed over in unison, each releasing their strongest light, and fighting with the Purple King. Mad Sand Emperor's Hand, Celestial Dragon Dance, Green Flame Curse. All kinds of high-quality and powerful martial arts techniques exploded in the sky outside the falling star continent's stronghold, producing colorful energy. Without 4 Titan cards, 1 would not be able to move. All the martial artists were dumbfounded. That purple-haired madman was actually fighting against 5 martial saints by himself. Judging from the ruthless aura emanating from him, he was actually not at a disadvantage. Too awesome. Too terrifying. Boom. Boom. In the sky above the falling star continent's stronghold, violent energy whistled. The space was already shattered. Ding Xingwang was fighting with the powerhouse. He used all kinds of sinister moves, catching the opponent off guard. Gradually, he gained the upper hand. The King of 100 Hills was even more so. He was completely suppressing an Earth-level powerhouse. However, their fight was far inferior to the Purple King's. After all, this guy was fighting 1 against 5. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. All kinds of high-level martial arts techniques whistled crazily. The Purple King blocked them with his physical strength alone. Then, he attacked fiercely and repeatedly, forcing the opponent to retreat. All the martial artists were stunned. Jiangya, the Ning brothers, and the others were also stunned. 1 against 5. And not at a disadvantage. How awe-inspiring was that? Whoosh. Jun Changshao stood up, put on the true Yang mask and said, "It's time to show my real skills." Judging from the situation, the 2 sides were fighting intensely, but they were in a stalemate. If they wanted to change the situation, there had to be an element of uncertainty. Jun Gosheng, who had a full set of top-tier equipment, and was half a step away from Wu Sheng, was very suitable to be this uncertain factor. It was mainly because the Purple King was in the limelight. If he didn't do anything, wouldn't he be laughed at? Boom. At this moment, a loud explosion came from outside the stronghold. The bald man had been punched down by the Purple King. My chance is here. Jun Changshao's eyes lit up. Immediately, he controlled the mechanical armed wings and flew out. The true Yang sword in his hand emitted a dazzling light. Taking advantage of the fact that the opponent was about to land, Jun Changshao slashed forward. Huff huff, sword chi crisscrossed, tearing apart space. The bald man, who had barely managed to stand firm on the ground, hastily retreated in desperation, only to see the unparalleled sword chi sweep past his scalp. Even though he'd barely dodged the attack, he was greatly shocked in his heart, because the might contained within the sword chi was sufficient to prove that Chun Xi's understanding of the sword Dao was extremely deep. This kid. Similarly, they should not be underestimated. Shua. Shua. Jun Changshao quickly came over and performed the one-word sword technique. Dense sword chi suddenly appeared like an inescapable net. 10,000 arts augmentation. The bald man shouted loudly. His whole body radiated light, forming layers of protective shields. Ding ding ding. The sword chi blasted on the shield, producing a crisp sound. However, under the frequent bombardment, cracks began to appear. When the last sword chi pressed down, it was like the last straw that broke the camel's back. Huff. The brilliance in the sky dissipated. Puff. The bald man spat out a mouthful of blood. Being punched by the Purple King was already extremely embarrassing. In addition, the defensive move he had performed in a hurry was broken. Immediately, it brought about a double backlash, and his meridians were damaged in many places. Die. Jun Changxiao's eyes turned cold as he rushed over again. He didn't foolishly approach the bald man. Once again, he performed the one-word sword technique, forming a dense sword attack. The bald man didn't dare to fight head-on, and hurriedly flew out. Although he rushed out of the sword net attack, his right arm was inevitably slashed by the sword, and blood flowed down. All the martial artists suddenly widened their eyes. The aura emitted by that guy was at most at the Xian level. To be able to injure an earth level, could it be that the sword in his hand was extraordinary? Sorry, not only the sword. The boots on his feet, the armor on his body, the mechanical wings on his back, and even the mask on his face were all extraordinary. When these things were combined, the strength provided was very obvious. Jun Patriarch was now a R&B warrior, and he was the kind who held the dragon-slaying saber. Shua. With the fusion of the armament wings and the power of flight, he flew out, and then raised his sword and slashed at the bald man crazily. Everyone come and see. The rich player is bullying the hard-working player. Shua. Shua. The sword shadow moved horizontally, and the sword aura rippled. Jun Changshao released his sword aptitude to the extreme, and he performed the Ling Jian God technique to the extreme. At that moment, the surrounding air was suppressed by the powerful sword aura. Wherever the sword aura passed, sword marks appeared in the air. In a short time, the injured bald man was suppressed by Jun Changshao to the point that he couldn't speak. When he flew out of the battle area with difficulty, there were more than 10 wounds on his body. Blood covered his body, and he became a famous person in the truest sense. Boom! Boom! On the other side, the Purple King was still fighting the 4 Earth-level masters alone. However, because there was one less, it was a lot easier, and his attacks were more powerful. The bearded man, the goat man, and the others were depressed. With one less companion to pin down, the pressure was obviously much greater than before. Boom! At that moment, Ding Xingwang relied on a sinister move and successfully sneak attacked his opponent, slamming him to the ground, and a black palm print appeared on his back. Whoosh! Jun Changshao seized the opportunity and suddenly turned around, killing the Earth-level master, who was fighting against the 5 ultimate evil chi. Ka. In a very short time, the arm holding the sword quickly entered battle mode. Sword chi traversing 30,000 miles. One sword light chills 19 continents. Jun Changshao shouted, and suddenly slashed down with his sword. Unparalleled sword chi rippled out from the space, tearing down with the force of a river. The Earth-level master who was fighting against the 5 ultimate evil chi in his body had a bad feeling, and he panicked and moved his body. Puchi! Blood splattered, and his arm fell to the ground. Jun Changxiao's sword was very fast, and it was also very clean. After the Earth-level master dodged and blood splattered for a while, he finally realized that his right arm had been cut off. Intense pain spread throughout his body. The 5 ultimate evil chi flooded his sea of consciousness like a flood. Ah! The Earth-level master who lost his arm screamed. Die! Jun Changxiao flew over, and the true Yang sword directly tore through the space, and an incomparably cold sword chi pierced through with a whoosh. Poochie! The sword light swept past, and a head was cut off. Plop! That person fell to the ground, and his head fell to the side. His expression was ferocious, and his eyes were wide open. Dead! Dead! The Earth-level master was killed. Oh my God! Chapter 897. When the 9 Heavens Continent powerhouse was killed, all the cultivators were dumbfounded. It was rare to even see such a powerhouse. Now he had been killed by a cultivator from the Falling Star continent. Congratulations to participant for killing an Earth powerhouse. You have received 20 merit points. Hearing the female system's voice, Jun Changxiao thought to himself, only 20 points? Looks like Wu Sheng's life isn't worth much in the planar battlefield. Elder. The disciples who were fighting Purple Craggy Monster King were furious. They were 9-star elders, and had known each other for thousands of years. Now that someone had died in front of them, they couldn't accept it. Boom. At that moment, the Purple King took the opportunity. Purple energy formed a fist and smashed the bearded man to the ground. He didn't attack further. Instead, he gathered energy and attacked the other 3. Go! My precious baby! Jun Changxiao's shameful voice sounded again. The Sky Origin soul-suppressing tower appeared and landed on the ground, suppressing the bearded man until he was half dead. He couldn't fight an Earth powerhouse head-on, but he could ambush them from behind. Moreover, he had a full set of top-grade equipment and a powerful treasure. He could definitely ambush them. Due to the uncertainties, 2 of the 9 Heavens Continent powerhouses were injured and 1 was killed in a short period of time. They were furious. They wanted nothing more than to tear Jun Changxiao into pieces. However, no matter how angry they were, they could only be held back by the Purple King and the others. They couldn't focus on that guy. Boom! Ding Xingwang appeared behind the enemy that the King of 100 Hills was fighting and used the 5 ultimate palms. Boom! The enemy didn't notice and fell to the ground. The 5 types of evil chi in his body surged out. In this way, only the Violet Craggy Demon King and the 3 Earth-ranked experts remained in battle, whereas the latter had already been suppressed to the point of retreating repeatedly, and they were utterly unable to organize an effective counterattack. The game is set. Jun Changxiao smiled. Die! Boom boom! The Purple King's energy crazily erupted as he unleashed a sky full of fist seals. The 5 of them were unable to gain the upper hand. Now there were only 3 Earth-level powerhouses left, and they could only be beaten to a sorry state. They could only be beaten to the point of staggering backwards. Retreat! Goatee shouted angrily. They had lost 6 out of 9 people, and the situation was dire. If they continued to fight, they would definitely be wiped out. Whoosh! Whoosh! In an instant, the 3 Earth-ranked powerhouses exploded with power, and then turned into streaks of light that shot into the distance. The Purple King could only watch and not do anything to stop an expert of this level, if they had no fighting spirit, and only wanted to escape. Humph! It said coldly, a bunch of cowards. Although it was a little difficult to fight against 5 Earth-ranked fighters, the Purple King was still very satisfied. Trying to run. The smile on Jun Changxiao's face gradually faded away after hearing Jin Dejuan's words. Then he said sinisterly, "You'll have to ask if I agree or not." Shua. He spread out his arms and shouted, "Explode! Wung! Wung! Wung!" As soon as he said the word, the space in the air suddenly distorted, and thunder arrays appeared one after another. The 3 Earth-ranked powerhouses who were fleeing saw the flowing light barrier appear in front of them, and a strong ominous feeling rose in their hearts. Not good. Boom! 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 The 10 thunder arrays arranged in the air flashed with the most dazzling light before they were born, and then a series of explosions immediately occurred. Ka-ka-ka! Ka-ka-ka-ka! For a moment, thunder energy whizzed out, and the huge explosion shook a large area of space and caused it to collapse. How big was the commotion caused by the explosion? The martial artists who were thousands of miles away all felt it, and so they all looked at the sky in shock. Then they all widened their eyes. At the end of their vision, a piece of space seemed to have been forcibly torn apart by some kind of power. Oh my God! What kind of power is this? Could it be that a heaven-ranked powerhouse has made a move? Whoosh whoosh, after the explosion, the wind whistled outside the stronghold of the falling star continent. The violent thunder element spread wildly, and the whole area seemed to have become a forbidden land of thunder. The martial artists who were closest to the explosion area and didn't cause any trouble looked shocked, and their hands and bodies trembled slightly. They had personally seen the series of explosions of the thunder arrays and felt the terror of the aftermath. So it was already very good that they were still in the air and didn't fall to the ground in fright. The corners of Jiangya and the others' mouths twitched. The patriarch had been in and out of the array hall a while ago, and he had been immersed in studying arrays with Zhen Dijuan. They knew that he had created an array called the Shocking Thunder Gathering Array. But today, when the array was activated and caused a series of explosions, it had caused such a terrifying destructive power. This was absolutely unexpected. Kikik. Jun Changshao covered his face and laughed strangely. It turns out that blowing people up is such a good thing. The corners of the Purple King's mouth twitched slightly, with the power of the explosion just now. If he had been the one in the middle of it, he would have been blown into a sorry state, if not seriously injured. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, in the area where the thunder roared, 3 martial artists from the 9 Heavens continent fell to the ground with wounds all over their bodies. Under the explosion of the thunder array, not only were they seriously injured, they were also unconscious. Congratulations to the participant for severely injuring 3 Earth-level martial artists. 60 merit points have been awarded. The female system's voice sounded. Severely injured? Jun Changshao was quite surprised. This kind of shocking thunder gathering array originated from the mystical 32 arrays, and was improved by me, Elder Zhen, and Shangguan Xinyao. Yet it couldn't kill Wu Sheng? The system said. The host's thunder array is barely close to the level of a low-level saint rank. Naturally, it couldn't kill Wu Sheng in water. Okay. Jun Changshao shrugged and said, it's good that he didn't die. I can use him as a bargaining chip. At this point he turned around. Looking at the group of martial artists who were trembling in fear, he sneered and said, do you want to give it a try too? Whoosh, whoosh. Everyone hurriedly released their reincarnation speed and fled as fast as they could. They were afraid that they would die here if they were a step slower. In the blink of an eye, the falling star continent stronghold became empty. Clean up the battlefield, Jun Changshao said. Yes. Jiangya and the others quickly took action. After a while, 8 more wooden pillars were erected outside the stronghold. 8 seriously injured 9 Heavens continent martial artists were tied up neatly with Ci Mei and Glaring Eye's family. When these brothers came, they were all arrogant, as if they were going to fly to heaven. Now they were either seriously injured, had their arms broken, or were burnt black like charcoal. They had long lost the demeanor of a martial artist. The Purple King was also related to their current situation. After all, he fought 5 Earth-level martial artists alone. He was definitely very strong. The camera turned. The Purple King, who was wearing only a pair of red underwear, stood in front of the wooden pillar with his arms crossed. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew over and blew away his purple hair, revealing an incomparably cold face. Peppa Pig's tattoo. Applause for the exhibitionist. Chapter 898. Of the 9 star elders sent by the 9 Heavens continent, 8 were captured and 1 was killed. They had lost completely. All the cultivators who were watching the show were scared away, scared witless. The 9 Earth-level powerhouses had actually fallen to such a state. Whoever dared to provoke the falling star continent would be courting death. Seriously injuring the Gentle Eyebrows and Kind Eyes duo had already established their might. Now that the 9 star elders were dealt with, all they had to do was wait for the news to spread and cause even greater shock and astonishment. The area of the stronghold is also more than 20 square meters larger than before. Jun Changshao touched his chin and said, "It seems that defeating a high-level powerhouse not only gives me double the merit points, but also double the area." At first, there was only one main hall in the stronghold, which occupied most of the area. Now that it had been expanded, they could barely build a few small rooms inside. Of course, this kind of construction and layout had to be left to Li Qingyang. Jun Changshao didn't think too much about it. Patriarch Jiangye held out the spatial ring and said, "The spatial rings of these 9 people are very valuable." "Oh, is that so?" Jun Changshao took it and checked it one by one. A smile immediately appeared on his face. The spatial rings of the 9 Earth-level powerhouses were indeed very valuable. Just the various quality crystal cores, herbs, and ores added up to several million. There were also many martial arts manuals of different cultivation systems. Due to the environment of the plane, the martial arts of the 9 Heavens continent might not be suitable for the martial artists of the Falling Star continent. However, Jun Changshao put all the manuals into his spatial ring and pulled out the technique pavilion. He found that the exchange rate of many manuals had increased by a lot. This meant that although the martial arts of the various planes couldn't be used, they could be used to make up the numbers, and could be exchanged for manuals in the technique pavilion. "This is very interesting." Go Xing grinned. Shengguan Xingyao had been creating manuals all this time, so her speed was still a bit slow. In the battlefield of hundreds of planes, as long as he snatched their manuals, he could definitely exchange for any martial arts in the technique pavilion. Jun Changshao found dozens of sparkling and translucent hexagonal stones in the spatial ring. Holding it in his hand, he released his spiritual sense into it, and found that it contained very pure spiritual energy. He said in surprise, "It carries more energy than natural spiritual stones." The system said, 10 times stronger. 10 times? Jun Changshao's eyes widened. This meant that one stone was worth 10 natural spirit stones. It seems that the overall strength of the 9 Heavens continent is much higher than that of the Falling Star continent. That's why the 9 Heavens continent can produce stronger spirit stones. It might not be called spirit stones in that world. Not bad. This kind of hexagonal spirit stone was known as the hexagonal star stone in the 9 Heavens continent. It was one of the rarest and most important resources for martial artists to cultivate. As long as it can provide spiritual energy to increase the speed of cultivation, it doesn't matter what it's called. Jun Changshao didn't dwell on the name. His eyes lit up as he said, "I can extort some of these things to help myself and my disciples improve their cultivation faster." The energy within the hexagram stone was plentiful and pure. If he used it to cultivate, he would definitely be able to raise his cultivation base very quickly. Patriarch Ding Xingwang said, 8 Earth-level experts were captured and 1 was killed. The 9 Heavens continent will definitely not let this go. They will even send experts to kill us. When he first entered the battlefield, he felt that it was just SOSO. After a few fights, he saw that Emperor-level experts were everywhere, and Saint-level experts were as common as dogs. He realized that this place wasn't simple at all. That's why we have to be fully prepared. Jun Changshao walked out of the stronghold and took out a small flag. He said, "When they come, we have to obediently hand over the ransom and not blatantly kidnap people." Xiao, xiao, xiao. Flowing light danced and scattered everywhere. Wang, wang. After a short while, 10 shocking lightning-gathering formations were set up. Some existed on the ground, some hung in the air, enveloping Xiaimei, Nu Mei, and the others. This kind of formation evolved from the Chi-Min 32 formations was really powerful. Previously, when the Purple King and many Earth-level experts fought until the space cracked, it didn't shake the foundation, and even caused a powerful explosion. Jun Changshao didn't hide the lightning formations in the space. They stood openly in the surroundings. The formation walls were connected with each other, forming a scene that seemed both real and illusory. The meaning was very simple. I'll place the hostages in the lightning formation. If you don't hand over the ransom, then everything will be blown up. This was very particular. Jun Changshao had just finished and returned to the stronghold, when he saw the space outside distort slightly. Dozens of powerful martial artists appeared out of thin air. The leader was a middle-aged man with a dignified appearance. He was dressed in leather and had a sharp sword inlaid with gems hanging from his waist. His whole body emitted a mighty aura. As for the 20 or so martial artists standing behind him, their strength was also at the earth level. Whoosh whoosh. Dozens of people hung in the air, forming a very explosive chi field. Ding Xingwang transmitted his voice. Patriarch, the guy standing at the front. I'm afraid his strength has already reached the peak of Wu Sheng's level. Jun Changshao also sensed it. He sat on a chair in front of the main hall, put one leg on it, and said loudly, 9 Heavens Continent. The dignified middle-aged man looked at Ci Mei, Nu Mei, and the others who were trapped in the gaps of the formation, and then looked at the Earth-level experts who were killed. He frowned slightly and said, Your Excellency has guts, daring to kill my 9 Heavens Continents people. Jun Changshao shrugged and said, I had no choice. City Lord. The old man standing behind the dignified middle-aged man said in a low voice, I'll go and save Ci Mei, Nu Mei, and the others. The middle-aged man stopped him and said, The formation arranged in the surroundings is not ordinary. Don't act recklessly. This friend, Jun Changshao said, I can see that you're a reasonable person. I also like to be reasonable. Why don't we talk calmly? What do you want to talk about? The middle-aged man asked. Jun Changshao interlocked his fingers and said, Your people wanted to catch wanted criminals to earn merit points. That's understandable. It's also understandable that they couldn't beat me and were captured by me, right? The middle-aged man was silent. Not only did they fail to catch wanted criminals, but they were also reduced to prisoners. The 9 Heavens Continent's face was completely lost by Ci Mei and Nu Mei. There was also the 9 Star Elders. They swore at the stronghold that they would be able to save them, but in the end, 8 of them were captured and 1 was killed. A bunch of people who couldn't do anything but spoiled things. Jun Changshao said, These 10 are all Earth-level experts. It's not easy for them to have today's achievements. Seeing that the heavens are virtuous, I didn't take their lives. So, the middle-aged man said coldly, Should this city lord thank you? No need to thank me. Jun Changshao waved his hand and took out a 6-pointed star stone and said, Just use this thing to redeem them. The middle-aged man's face instantly darkened. This brat said he was being reasonable, but in the end he was just extorting him. Jun Changshao said, If you feel bad about this kind of thing and aren't willing to take it out to redeem them, they will die immediately. This was definitely not a joke. With just a thought, the lightning array would explode, and with Ci Mei and Nu Mei's heavily injured and unconscious state, they would definitely be blown into meat paste. Are you threatening this city lord? Anger appeared in the middle-aged man's eyes. Jun Changshao spread his hands and said, I've already given you the chance. Their life and death is up to you to decide. Of course, if you think you're strong enough to snatch them away from the lightning array, you might as well give it a try. Wang. As soon as Jun Changshao finished speaking, the lightning array set up around Ci Mei and Nu Mei's group suddenly flickered. The powerful lightning attribute wantonly spread, as if it would cause a huge explosion at any time. The 9 Heavens Continent's martial artists were shocked. They could also see that the array that was brazenly displayed around them was a bit strong, but they didn't expect the aura to be so strong. The middle-aged man frowned. After a short moment of thought he said, How many 6-pointed star stones to redeem them? Chapter 899. That dignified middle-aged man was called Mo Shangxing. He was a powerful city lord in the 9 Heavens Continent. As for Ci Mei and 9 Star Elder, they were his subordinates. The 9 Heavens Continent was similar to the Scarlet Sea Continent. Every 5 years, they would send a powerful force to oversee the battlefield. This time, it was City Lord Mo's turn. A few hundred years ago, he had brought his subordinates to settle in. It should have been an easy thing, but so many of his subordinates had died in the hands of a nobody from the Falling Star Continent. Mo Shangxing was very irritated and depressed. He could even imagine how humiliating it would be if news of this spread throughout the planar battlefield. Especially when the news spread back to the 9 Heavens Continent, It would definitely be used by his enemies to spread the news and mock him. If it weren't for Jun Changshao sitting in the safe zone, Mo Shangxing would have already attacked him in anger and tortured him 1,000 times. Calm down, calm down. The lightning formation set up by this continent was a bit powerful. If he couldn't control his emotions, his 10 subordinates would definitely die. Although the overall strength of the Nine Heavens continent was higher than that of the Falling Star continent, the Earth-level experts were still considered top-notch experts. Not to mention 10, even the death of one would be painful. Not to mention, Mo Shangxing also had enemies and opponents in his own territory. If he died in the planar battlefield, when he returned, what would he use to fight against them? Therefore, after a short consideration, Mo Shangxing chose to compromise and agreed to use resources to exchange for the 10 captives. So it's called the hexagram stone. Jun Changshao also knew the stone's name. He rubbed his chin and said, 1 million per head. 1 million. Mo Shangxing said in a low voice. I can't take out that much. 1 million per head. 10 would be 10 million. This was definitely a huge number. Even if he could take it out, it would be like bleeding a lot. I'm not an unreasonable person. I'll take a step back. Jun Changshao said. 1 head 990,000. Mo Shangxing's mouth twitched. You're being reasonable. And you're lowering it by 10,000? Mo Shangxing said with a sullen face. Kid, I'm serious about negotiating with you. I'm also very serious. Jun Changshao rested his chin on the back of his hand and said, We're not doing business, so there's no need to bargain. 900,000 per head. This time, the concession was still acceptable. At least 100,000 pills were deducted. However, Mo Shangxing still couldn't accept it. After all, taking out 9 million pills would definitely hurt him greatly. Of course, Jun Changshao said, if you can't take out so many hexagram stones, you can also use medicinal herbs, ores, treasures, weapons, and so on. I won't mind. Mo Shangxing was so angry that he almost suffered internal injuries. As the city lord of a large city in the Nine Heavens continent, he had never been so passive before. Brat! An old man next to him shouted angrily. Our city lord is already giving you enough face by talking to you calmly. Don't be ungrateful. City lord. Jun Changshao narrowed his eyes and said, Your subordinate doesn't seem to be aware of the current situation. What kind of situation is this? The hostages were in his hands, and he could kill them at any time. Mo Shangxing's brows furrowed as he said, Hexagram stones are extremely rare in the continent. It's hard for me to take out the amount you're talking about. How much can you take? 100,000. 100,000 per person? 10 people. Forget it. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, You're not sincere at all. I'll just kill them all. Wang. Wang. As soon as he said that, the lightning array outside the stronghold flickered again, as if it was just a hair's breadth away from exploding. The Nine Heavens continent's martial artists panicked, and even prepared to retreat. Mo Shangxing suppressed his anger and said, Kid, from the size of your stronghold, you should be just starting out. If you kill them, I'll send people to seal this place and fight you to the death. Are you sure this is worth it? Jun Changshao was silent. Was he telling him that he was going to go all out? Mo Shangxing sneered and said, According to the rules of the plane, if the stronghold hasn't reached a certain size, there's a time limit. When the time comes, you'll be sent out. How can you return alive? So, Jun Changshao said, I'm in a hurry. If you don't pay the ransom quickly, I'll have to kill them. At worst, we'll die together. The time limit of the stronghold was completely useless to him, because he only needed to return to the sect of all times within the time limit. Mo Shangxing didn't know. He thought that he could use this as a threat to take the initiative in the negotiation. Besides, Jun Changshao said, I've already killed one of your continent's Earth-level powerhouses. The grudge is completely formed. What's the harm in killing 10 more? It's better to squash enmity than keep it alive. Mo Shangxing's tone gradually softened. As long as you let them go, we'll pretend that nothing happened. Our Nine Heavens continent won't interfere with what the Falling Star continent does in the planar battlefield. Do you think I'll believe such words to fool a 3-year-old? Jun Changshao said. Mo Shangxing said solemnly. I'm the city lord of the 9 heavens continent's divine firmament city. I've always kept my word. Jun Changshao fell into deep thought, seemingly moved by his words. All right. He slapped the armrest and said, I believe you. The price is fixed. 200,000 pills per head. Lowering the price from 1 million to 200,000 was definitely a big concession. However, Mo Shangxing was on the verge of collapse. He felt that after talking for so long, he still had to pay the ransom. Nonsense. Goshing wasn't someone who would change his principles so easily. Since he had done something to extort, no matter how much he had to extort. City Lord. Jun Changshao said. If you think this price is appropriate, then hurry up and make the deal. Otherwise, I'm afraid I won't be able to resist detonating the lightning array. Mo Shangxing began to think. The 9 heavens continent is probably a world where the strong preys on the weak. 10 Earth-level powerhouses are definitely not small. If they die in the planar battlefield, I'm afraid you'll suffer a great loss, Jun Changshao said. Besides, since I can capture so many of your people, I'm naturally not a pushover. If you really want to go all out, I'm afraid you'll suffer even more losses. Why don't you just hand over 2 million hexagram stones? Good for you, good for me, good for everyone? Mo Shangxing frowned. Buzz. Buzz. The lightning array was still flashing, and the lightning element in the air was getting stronger. This forced him to not waste time, or think too much. All right, Mo Shangxing said. 2 million. Pay first, then let them go, Jun Changshao said. Mo Shangxing's mouth twitched. He had experienced similar situations before, but he had never been led by the nose like this. I'm the patriarch of the strongest sect in the falling star continent. I've always been a man of his word, so please don't worry, Jun Changshao said. Shua. A unique spatial ring landed at the edge of the stronghold. Mo Shangxing suppressed his heartache and said with difficulty, There are 2 million hexagram stones inside. Jun Changshao waved his hand. The Purple King immediately stepped out, picked up the ring, and hurriedly returned to the stronghold. It seemed like he was also worried that the other party would take the opportunity to make trouble. City Lord is a straightforward person. I hope we can work together again next time. Jun Changshao counted and confirmed the number, and a smile appeared on his face. Although he didn't extort 10 million, 2 million hexagram stones were comparable to tens of millions of natural spirit stones. Humans' contentment was bliss. Whoosh! Whoosh! The dozens of thunder arrays suddenly disappeared, and the explosive aura also gradually disappeared. Jun Patriarch was indeed a man of honor. Shua! Shua! As soon as the thunder arrays disappeared, several powerhouses from the 9 heavens continent flew over and rescued the unconscious Ci, Mei and Nu Mei. When they returned to their original positions, they all glared at Jun Changshao and the others in the stronghold. At first, they had hostages in the hands of the other party, so they didn't dare to attack. Now that they had rescued them, they naturally had nothing to fear. Jun Changshao stood up and cupped his hands. It's getting late. We'll take our leave first. Leave. Mo Shangxing and the 9 heavens continent's martial artists were stunned. Pa! Jun Changshao snapped his fingers. A vortex of light gradually appeared at the bottom of the stairs of the main hall. Mo Shangxing's eyes widened. Could it be a teleportation array to the outside world? That's not right. The falling star continent's territory was so small that it didn't meet the standards at all. How could there be a teleportation device to leave the plane? The martial artists behind him were also dumbfounded. In their opinion, to be able to do two-way teleportation, the stronghold must at least be developed to the size of a town. Shua! Shua! Lu Qianqian He Wudi, and the others entered one after another. Jun Changshao was the last to enter. Before the teleportation, he waved at Mo Shangxing and said, "See you tomorrow." Whoosh, he disappeared into thin air, and the vortex gradually dissipated. Mo Shangxing and the other powerhouses from the 9 heavens continent gathered outside the stronghold were still in a state of confusion. Obviously, it was difficult for them to adapt to the fact that the stronghold hadn't been developed yet, and the falling star continent's martial artists could be teleported out. Chapter 900. After receiving the ransom, Jun Changshao returned to the Sect of all times with his men. Just like how he came lightly and left lightly, waving his hand without taking away a single cloud. Mo Shangxing and the martial artists from the Nine Heavens continent looked at the empty stronghold, stunned for a long time. What was going on? The dimensional battlefield portal in the system store was a bug. Jun Changshao could use it to come and go as he pleased. Did the stronghold have a time limit? Or did they send people to block it outside? I'll run after acting cool. What can you do to me? City Lord. A powerhouse said. What do we do now? Mo Shangxing suppressed his anger and heartache, saying, return to the stronghold. After giving the six-pointed star stone, he had considered ransoming them back, taking the initiative, and then thinking of a way to get them back. In the end, they slipped away right under his nose. It didn't make sense at all. Go, go, go. Mo Shangxing left with his subordinates, extremely irritated. At the same time, he was prepared to embarrass himself in this plane. As expected, in just one night, the news of the Nine Heavens continent's CI, May and 9-star elder being captured by the falling star continent spread like wildfire. For a moment, all the powerhouses were discussing, their faces full of astonishment. The first echelon of the Nine Heavens continent's 11 Earth-level powerhouses were defeated in the hands of an unknown plane. It was unbelievable. Could it be a rumor? It's absolutely true. Moreover, 3 wanted martial artists appeared in the falling star continent yesterday. Many people rushed over and witnessed the battle with their own eyes. There was a naked guy with purple hair who was fierce. He single-handedly defeated 5 Earth-level powerhouses. What kind of plane is this falling star continent? How can it be so powerful? Who knows? It's like he appeared out of thin air on the battlefield. The Nine Heavens continent suffered such a big loss, and so many Earth-level powerhouses were captured. They definitely won't let this go. Yesterday's battle was destined to be discussed on the battlefield for a period of time. As for Mo Shangxing going to ransom someone, because there were no other martial artists present, the outside world did not know. At this time, the ones who should be rejoicing the most were naturally the people from the Scarlet Sea continent. After all, after Che Yuanxi was heavily injured, they had clamored to find trouble with Jun Changshao. Palace Master. At this moment in the main hall, a Blue Ocean Palace elder frowned and said, this falling star continent can make the Nine Heavens continent suffer. They really can't be underestimated. Hong Yao, who was sitting at the head of the table, frowned and said, fortunately, I didn't look for trouble first. Otherwise, I would have ended up in a worse state. If even the Nine Heavens continent couldn't handle it, he didn't think he could. Could it be that we have no choice but to admit defeat? An elder said rather unhappily. So many disciples had died, and a few elders had been seriously injured. Anyone with courage would not be able to endure this. Hong Yao sneered and said, 9-star elders have been captured, but the Nine Heavens continent definitely won't be finished. I believe that it won't be long before Mo Shangxing, who is guarding the stronghold, is alerted. He had already been alerted, and had rushed over yesterday. Unfortunately, it was still useless. In the end, he still used 2 million hexagram stones to ransom someone. Awesome! Jun Changshao sat in the study with a smile on his face. This feeling of running away after acting cool was really exciting. If this was the falling star continent, he might be apprehensive. After all, the monk could run away, but the temple could not. However, it was different in the planar battlefield. You're capable. Come and fight me. Wait a few days before going in. Jun Changshao murmured. This time, not only did he get his revenge in the planar battlefield, but the stronghold had also expanded. Thus, he decided that he would go in and play whenever he had time. Master. Little Long Long was puzzled and said, the red light on my body disappeared again. Jun Changshao said, this kind of light only exists in the planar battlefield. It disappeared after coming out. I see. Little Long Long understood. Of course, the so-called disappearance did not really disappear. If he returned to the battlefield, he would definitely enter the red wanted state again. At least, he would have to wait for a while before he could completely clear it. It should be easier for Qingyang and the others to break through to the Emperor level after experiencing actual combat in the mortal battlefield, Jun Changshao said to himself. At present, the value of the planar battlefield was that it could provide a channel for the sect disciples to become stronger, although it would be very dangerous after entering. Huff huff. Suddenly, in the wing of the inner yard disciples, the aura of a breakthrough suddenly appeared. Jun Changshao released his spiritual thoughts and said, Anyo is about to break through? Huff huff, the aura of a breakthrough swept through the inner yard wantonly. All the disciples who were busy were alarmed. Senior brother Yi is about to break through. He just came back from the battlefield and is about to enter Wu Huang. This is too fast. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others, who were in seclusion, also sensed it. Combined with the surge talisman, they more or less understood the aura of a breakthrough. The aura of a breakthrough would infect others, provided that the infected person happened to be at the threshold of a breakthrough. An hour later, the aura of a breakthrough gradually weakened, and everything returned to normal. Yi Xingchen, who was sitting cross-legged in the room, slowly opened his eyes and murmured expressionlessly, he broke through. It had only been 4 or 5 years since he became the current Wu Huang from a useless body. The speed of his growth was much faster than in his previous life, but he was not happy at all. After going to the planar battlefield, Yi Xingchen understood that although he had become a martial emperor, he was in a remote corner. The outside world was actually very big, and there were many powerhouses. In his previous life, he stood at the top of the falling star continent. In this life, he must stand higher and see further. Yi Xingchen's breakthrough was expected, so Jun Changshao was not too surprised. He began to think about what to do next. 5 years later, the falling star continent would enter the battlefield, so he had to pay attention to the expansion of the stronghold. By the time they entered, it would be the size of a city. Of course, once the stronghold reached a certain size, it would also open a merit store. Jun Changshao was very curious about what good things were sold there. There was also Su Xiaoma. Although he had snuck into the Taishan Shengzong, he was still an outer disciple. He had to find a way to help him become an inner disciple. He could use the identity of Old Man Jun Tian to do something. I have to do 2 things at the same time. Jun Changshao made a decision. In half a month, he would let Hall Master Z and Bai Qiu enter the planar battlefield again, to cause trouble for the Scarlet Sea continent and the Lingyun continent. He would try to expand the stronghold. As for Su Xiaoma, he had to wait for news and the best time. With a temporary plan for the 2 matters, Jun Changshao began to think about how he could break through to Wu Sheng from the semi-saint stage faster. In fact, after the 2 epic quests were completed, he had thought about it. The semi-saint stage was different from the emperor stage. There was a grade and peak, and it was an absolutely independent cultivation level. How could he improve? Moreover, because he had the system, breaking through to Wu Sheng was already considered a big realm. Would there be another epic quest that he had to complete before he could advance? The system said, every time you break through a level, an epic quest will naturally appear. Jun Changshao said, when I break through to the peak of a realm, the epic quest will be triggered, but half-step Wu Sheng has no grade and peak. How can I trigger the epic quest? When the host feels that he is about to break through to Wu Sheng, it will be triggered. The system said, aren't you talking nonsense? Jun Changshao also knew that he was about to break through, and the epic quest would be triggered. But the key was how to feel that he was about to break through to Wu Sheng. Relying on cultivation and comprehension? This was not impossible. After all, he had the 5 elements body and various mental cultivation methods. But wouldn't it be a little slow? The system said, the most important thing about martial arts is perseverance. If the host wants to eat until he becomes a fatty, he can sleep and realize it in his dreams. Chapter 901. It was reasonable for Yi Xingchen to enter Wu Huang. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others would need some time to break through. It was not a big problem. After all, there were enough surge talismans. They could follow Hall Master Z and the others into the dimensional battlefield to improve their understanding of the Emperor level. I'm going to cultivate too. Over the next few days, Jun Changshao put his mind to cultivation, which was a rare occurrence. Whoosh inside the spirit gathering array, majestic spirit chi swept over. The 5 elements in it were drawn out and rushed into his dantian. This 5 elements constitution is amazing, Jun Changshao said in surprise. He had obtained the 5 elements constitution in the Fatality Tower. However, because he had reached the peak of the Emperor level, his realm was stuck. No matter how hard he cultivated, he did not feel anything. Now that he had broken through to the half-saint level, his upper limit had increased. Once he activated it and used the 5 elements heavenly reflection technique, the 5 elements in the heaven and earth attributes could be easily obtained. The system said, this constitution can help the host condense the 5 elements faster. I have to make good use of it, Jun Changshao said. After leaving the sect affairs to Hall Master Li and a few elders, he focused all his attention on cultivation. He cultivated for half a month and absorbed a lot of 6-pointed star stones during this time. This kind of ore from the 9 heavens continent was not only 10 times more valuable than spirit stones, but the process of absorbing it also had an obvious effect on martial arts. I'm much stronger than I was half a month ago. Jun Changshao walked out of the spirit gathering array and felt the increase of the spirit chi, an invisible force in his body. A satisfied smile appeared on his face. During this period of cultivation, he was also comprehending the dragon-elephant prajnapam. Because he had broken through to the half-saint level, his understanding of martial arts became deeper and deeper. He had gathered 15 rays of dragon-elephant power. With my current strength, even if I don't rely on the store's equipment, it shouldn't be difficult for me to fight those rank 1 Wu Sheng, right? Jun Changshao thought to himself. The system said, you definitely have no problem fighting the rank 1 Wu Sheng of the Starfall continent, but it will be a little difficult for you to fight the Earth-level masters of the dimensional battlefield. I can't go to the dimensional battlefield every day, Jun Changshao said. With the existence of the bug-like portal, the dimensional battlefield was actually more similar to the life and death secret realm. For now, Jun Changshao's focus was still on the falling star continent. After all, he wanted to build the strongest sect there was. Patriarch. Jiangye walked into the main hall and asked, when are we going to the battlefield? Previously he, the Ning brothers, and the others had all benefited greatly from the battle inside. Thus, they very much hoped to go in and have a good fight again. They could improve themselves through actual combat, instead of just cultivating bitterly. Inform Hall Master Z that we will enter tomorrow, Jun Changshao said. All right. The next day, Jun Changshao led his original team into the planar battlefield once more. After stabilizing the stronghold, he spread out his arms and shouted, I Huhan-san am back. Unfortunately, there were no cultivators from this plane to greet them this time. Otherwise, they would definitely be scared out of their wits. After all, this plane's cultivators could not afford to provoke the 9 heavens continent. Patriarch. Li Qingyang looked at the stronghold and said, should we build a few houses? After returning, he was even more focused on the construction of the stronghold. He had dozens of building sketches and designs, and there were many building materials in his spatial ring. He could build them at any time. What was professional? This was professional. No rush. Jun Changshao said. We will build them together when we have enough space. Okay. Li Qingyang received the order and suppressed his thoughts. Patriarch. Jiangye said. Why didn't anyone come to greet us this time? Ding Xinguang said. After the last battle, they should have realized that the falling star continent is not a pushover. Since the Scarlet Sea continent and the Lingyun continent were there before, it means that their territories are very close to ours. Jun Changshao stroked his chin and said, if they don't come to welcome us, we will take the initiative to go. After saying that, the corners of his mouth curled up into a harmless smile. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but think, Patriarch must have thought of some bad idea. Hundreds of miles away from the Scarlet Sea continent's stronghold, groups of martial artists were flying around. These people were either from the Blue Sea Palace or from other factions of the continent. As for martial artists from other planes, there was not a single one. After a stronghold was built to a certain scale, the nearby area would definitely become theirs. Therefore, martial artists from other planes naturally didn't dare to rashly cross the border. Boom! Boom! Suddenly, there was an explosion in the distance. The martial artists from the Scarlet Sea continent all stopped in midair and looked up. In their field of vision, several streams of light flew over at extreme speed and gathered various martial techniques, crazily bombarding their own martial artists and fellow martial artists. Someone was here to cause trouble. This was their first reaction. Whoosh! At this moment, a purple stream of light appeared in front of them. It was a naked man with purple hair and red underwear. He had a cold smile on his face. It's him, the martial artist from the Falling Star continent, who fought 5 Earth-ranked martial artists by himself. Scram! The Purple King coldly raised his hand, and the purple attribute pressed down like a wave, instantly enveloping the 5 yellow-ranked martial artists from the Scarlet Sea continent. Then he suddenly threw them behind. Whoosh! Whoosh! Yi Xingchen flew over, and the true Yang sword in his hand cut through the void. In an instant, he slashed out several incomparably cold sword auras, obliterating the few people who flew over on the spot. Tisk tisk. The purple craggy monster monarch looked back and muttered, "This guy is quite ruthless when he fights." Boom! Boom! In another direction, Ding Xingwang also rushed over. Wu Sheng's cultivation erupted, instantly suppressing the Scarlet Sea continent's martial artists. Then Li Qingyang and the others mercilessly reaped the rewards. With his and the Purple King's strength, they could definitely kill them in an instant. The reason why they left it to the disciples was to maximize the merit points. Not good. The Falling Star continent's martial artists are here. Quickly return to the stronghold. The Scarlet Sea continent's martial artists' eyes were filled with shock. They used all their strength to escape, and sent a distress signal back to the stronghold as quickly as possible. Bang! A loud explosion came from behind. An Emperor stage expert who was preparing to escape turned around in horror, and saw a strange object exploding with a stream of light. It's over. Boom! An explosion suddenly occurred in midair, rolling up white smoke. Xiao Ziji put down the God-modified RPG rocket launcher, and took out a high-level crystal core to recharge it. He was secretly surprised and said, "The 9 Heavens continent's crystal core is really strong. It can kill an Emperor stage expert with a single shot." Retreat, retreat, retreat. Seeing the ultra-long-range hidden weapon, the Scarlet Sea continent's martial artists panicked even more. However, just as they were escaping, a bone-piercing chill suddenly appeared behind them. Frost quickly gathered on their bodies, greatly reducing their flying speed. Lu Qianqian hovered in the distance, her jade-like hands intertwined. Swish! He Woody flew over at top speed, charging into the crowd that had slowed down. He unleashed a violent fist technique, instantly crippling all 6 of the Crimson Sea continent's martial artists. The Falling Star continent's sudden attack caught these martial artists off guard, so dozens of them died in a short period of time. The Scarlet Sea continent's stronghold received the news as soon as possible and hurriedly sent out a large number of experts. However, when they arrived at the scene of the incident, the Purple King, Ding Xingwang, and the others had already retreated. Just like how I came quietly and left quietly. Everyone. Suddenly, a voice came from the sky. Please watch your people and don't let them leave the stronghold at will. Otherwise, it's easy for accidents to happen. Damn it. The Scarlet Sea continent's experts were all furious. In the main hall of the stronghold, Jade Sea Palace's Palace Lord Hong Yao flew into a rage after receiving the news that his disciple had been attacked. Despicable and shameless bastard. Palace Lord. An elder frowned and said, "That guy is clearly going against our Scarlet Sea continent. If he keeps hiding in the dark, I'm afraid he'll be very passive." Crack. Hong Yao clenched the armrest and gnashed his teeth in anger. If it was any other plane that dared to use sneak attacks, he would definitely return the favor. However, not many people from the Falling Star continent had entered. Once they scattered and hid, it would be very difficult to find them. Elder Jiang, has the Lingyun continent's stronghold been confirmed? I'm still searching. Jun Changshao was sitting in front of the main hall of the stronghold. He smiled coldly and said, anyone who has offended my falling star continent, if I don't kill you until you're shivering in the spring, the previous sect master will write his surname backwards. Chapter 902. Jiang Ye's understanding of the primordial spirit was getting stronger and stronger, and the expansion of his spiritual senses was increasing every day. Therefore, the task of searching for the Lingyun stronghold was left to him. Patriarch, I found it. Where is it? Southeast. Let's go. Therefore, Jun Patriarch led his men and charged over. This guy continued his strategy against the Crimson Sea continent and carried out sneak attacks outside the stronghold. The sect of all times definitely did not have the strength to fight against an entire plain openly, but it was not a problem to use guerrilla warfare and sneak attacks. Pft! Pft! Yi Xingchen charged over with his sword. After breaking through to Wu Huang, his strength had increased further. Even the Lingyun martial artists who were comparable to rank 3 or rank 4 Wu Huang were beheaded by his sharp sword. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others could only rely on the Surge Talisman for the time being, so they could not kill the enemy instantly. In fact, to them, killing people was not the main goal. The most important thing was to be able to fight with high-level experts and benefit from actual combat. Boom! Boom! Light shone in all directions on the battlefield, burning cards crazily. Whoosh! Whoosh! Reinforcements from the Lingyun continent came very quickly. Hundreds of yellow-level martial artists and dozens of black-level martial artists shot over with streaks of light behind them. Retreat! Jun Changshao did not linger and immediately led everyone away. Li Qingyang and the other disciples had the support of the steel wings. Once they flew, their speed was so fast that the Lingyun martial artists could not catch up. They did not fight head-on and ran away as fast as a chicken. This was definitely something that could make one vomit blood. Damn it! Too despicable. Don't run if you have the guts. Fight me for 300 rounds. The cultivators of the Lingyun continent couldn't catch up. They could only hover in the air and curse loudly to vent their anger. They attacked 2 planes consecutively and severely injured nearly 200 people. The Falling Star continent stronghold had also increased to 100 square meters. Of course, it was still far from the size of a small village. There was no rush. The development of the territory needed to be done slowly, and Jun Gosheng had the time. Moreover, this fellow definitely wouldn't grab the Scarlet Sea continent and the Lingyun continent to pluck their wool, because plucking too much would alert the other side. So he set his sights on other planes. This was his first time on the battlefield, and there were quite a few planes that had participated in the pursuit of his life. Take the Shengxian continent and the Imperial Sword continent, for example. If they shared the number of people per person, wouldn't the area be piled up? This kind of thing had to be done as soon as possible, in case the other party got the news and went into a state of alert in advance, giving him no chance to make a move. In particular, he had to be careful of the retaliation of these planes. Although they didn't bring many people with them, and they might not be discovered in the battlefield, they still had to be careful. Most importantly, they had to restrain themselves when they were killing people. They must not go berserk when they were outside. Jun Changxiao's motto was that it was okay to be unrestrained on the battlefield, but one must pay attention to one's safety and not shed tears for others. Let's go back to the sect. Due to the Surge Talisman, Jun Changshao brought his disciples back to the sect of all times after ambushing the Lingyun continent. It could be said that they came and left in a hurry. After they left, the Scarlet Sea continent and the Lingyun continent held an emergency meeting. The focus of the discussion was on how to deal with the Falling Star continent's ambush and how to retaliate. Palace Master, an elder said angrily, send more experts from the sect and scatter them outside the stronghold. If they dare to come, destroy them immediately. No, Hong Ya rejected. The Falling Star continent is very strong to be able to deal with the 9-star elders. If we send more people, it will only be advantageous for them to ambush in the dark. The current situation was that although the Scarlet Sea continent had the advantage in numbers, they were in the open, while Jun Changshao was in the dark. Palace Master, an elder suggested, we just received news that the Lingyun continent was ambushed by the Falling Star continent, and nearly 100 people died. We can join forces with this plane. That's a good idea, Hong Yao said. The other elders expressed their agreement. Thus, the Scarlet Sea continent sent cultivators to the Lingyun continent's stronghold on the same day. Because both planes were victims and had a common enemy, the matter of joining forces hit it off immediately. It was very common for planes to form alliances on the battlefield, but it was a mess for two high-ranked planes to join forces for a 9th-tier plane. Thus, when the news spread, it immediately caused a lot of discussion. Some people thought that a plane that suddenly appeared out of nowhere was able to make two veteran planes join forces. This was really a bit awesome. Some people also thought that the Scarlet Sea continent and the Lingyun continent were taking a 9th-tier plane too seriously. If it were their own side, they could easily deal with it. When Mo Shangxing found out that Jun Changshao had ambushed two planes, he broke down. Is the planar battlefield his backyard? He comes and goes as he pleases. City Master, the subordinate said, should we help the Scarlet Sea continent and the Lingyun continent? Mo Shangxing shook his head. Being able to enter and leave the planar battlefield as he pleases, this kid probably has something to do with the higher realms. Let's wait and see. He was very angry that an Earth-tier powerhouse had been killed. However, the fact that a cultivator from the Starfall continent could appear on the battlefield and come and go as he pleased meant that he definitely had a special relationship with the higher realms. Thus, he had to seriously consider it. Of course, City Master Mo had already used his connections to find a way to contact the higher realms, hoping to get information about the Starfall continent and the strongest sect of all time. The Starfall continent altar could use their connections to obtain information about the major planes on the battlefield, and the Nine Heavens continent naturally had ways to contact the higher realms as well. Inside the misty main hall, a woman surrounded by faint mist leaned on the throne, her right hand holding a jade scroll to communicate with the lower realms. She said in surprise, the Starfall continent has entered the battlefield? The hunchbacked old man standing below was stunned. Don't we have to wait 5 years to enter this plane? Strange. The woman was also puzzled. She said, the strongest sect of all time? Why haven't I heard of it? The old man said, my lord, there's news about the sect you asked me to investigate. It's called the Sect of All Times, formerly known as the Ironbone Clan. It has risen in the Starfall continent in recent years. The strongest sect of all time and the Sect of All Times are the same sect. To have such an outrageous name, it must be the same sect. The woman fell into a short silence. She said, if that's the case, he will also go to the planar battlefield. There are hundreds of planes there, and the powerhouses are as numerous as the sand of the Ganges. With his arrogant personality, will he be affected? Whoosh! She threw the jade scroll to the old man and said, tell the people in the lower realms that the Starfall continent has entered the planar battlefield. Everything is within the rules. Should we inform the realm hall? No need. Yes. The old man retreated. Then, he transmitted his master's words to the lower realm through a jade slip. Inwardly he muttered, Master has been paying special attention to the Falling Star continent recently. Is it because he ascended from this plane? City Lord. In the stronghold of the Nine Heavens continent, a subordinate hurried over and said, there's news from the upper realms. The Starfall continent has entered the planar battlefield. Everything is within the rules. Mo Shangxing was dumbfounded. The stronghold of that plane hadn't even developed yet, but they could enter and leave as they pleased. How was it within the rules? No. Mo Shangxing sat down and knocked on the table with one hand. After thinking for a long time, he suddenly stood up and said in shock, the Starfall continent definitely has someone in the upper realms. Chapter 903. As long as the stronghold had not reached the size of a town, it could enter and leave freely. The message from the upper realms said that it was within the rules. Mo Shangxing could not help but think that there was someone on the Falling Star continent who gave them the right to enter freely. That was quite impressive. He could not afford to offend them. Although the Nine Heavens continent was strong, it was still just a plane in the universe. It could only bow and scrape in front of the giant upper realm. The Falling Star continent, which was in the 9th echelon, had the upper realm as its backer. They could not afford to offend them. Pass down the order. After serious consideration, Mo Shangxing immediately ordered, "Tell the Nine Heavens continent martial artists on the battlefield that they can offend anyone but the Falling Star continent. Those who disobey will be punished severely." Yes, the subordinate hurriedly left. Not long after, the order from the city lord had reached the ears of the Nine Heavens continent martial artists. They were all puzzled. "What's wrong, city lord?" The Falling Star continent had killed an Earth-level powerhouse. This was a deep hatred, yet he did not want them to offend them. As a veteran in a first-echelon plane, Wuxia had experienced fierce battles on the battlefield. When had he ever been afraid? Of course, they would definitely obey the city lord's order. Mo Shangxing did not tell the other planes about the speculation that the Falling Star continent had someone in the upper realm. At this moment, he was sitting in the main hall gloating. The strength of this plane is limited after all. If you offend too many people, something will happen sooner or later. You might even alert the upper realm's backer. He did not intend to offend the Falling Star continent, nor did he intend to tell the other planes. He was prepared to watch the show as a bystander. Sect of all times. After Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others returned to their residence without saying a word. They began to summarize and comprehend the experience of breaking through to the emperor level and fighting with powerhouses. This was a precious treasure. It was also their capital to break through a major realm faster. Jun Changshao sat in the main hall and began to ponder. "I've killed an Earth-ranked elite from the Nine Heavens continent, and even extorted 2 million star stones. This grudge has definitely been formed. When they find out that I've come again, I'm afraid they'll make a move. So it's best to be on guard." If he was only facing some planes that were not of a very high level, he was confident that he could fight them. Even if he could not win, he could still run. However, the first-tier planes had casually sent out 9 Earth-level masters. Perhaps they would send out a Heaven-level master. He didn't know what level the Falling Star continent was at, but he was confident that the Purple King wouldn't be able to handle it. The next day, Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others walked out. Although they hadn't broken through to the next cultivation level, they had also gained a lot. They didn't have Night Emperor's martial arts experience from his previous life, nor did they have Go Sheng's cheats to improve themselves. Therefore, even if there was a shortcut, they had to take it one step at a time. Set off. Jun Changshao once again gathered everyone and headed to the plain battlefield. Just as Mo Shangxing had said, they were completely treating that place as their own backyard. Whoosh! Whoosh! Everyone was teleported in. Li Qingyang looked at the expanded area and couldn't hold back his crazy desire to build. Jun Changshao patted him on the shoulder and said, "When you break through to Wu Huang, you can enter the battlefield at will. Then it will be time for you to show your talent in construction. Build a stronghold that will put all the planes to shame." "I will work hard," Li Qingyang said with a determined look in his eyes. "Patriarch," Jiangye said, "there are many concealing formations around the stronghold. Many warriors from the Scarlet Sea continent and the Lingyun continent are hidden inside." Oh, Jun Changshao released his spiritual thoughts. Although he sensed the presence of formations 100 miles away, he didn't see anyone. He exclaimed, "Can a primordial spirit body pass through formations?" "Yes," Jiangye said, "but only if the level is not high." The corner of Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. Although the formations set up outside the stronghold were not as good as the 32 formations, they were at least at the peak of the Emperor level. In front of his primordial spirit body, they were classified as low level. "Your constitution is quite strong. You must study it well," Jun Changshao said. Jiangye said, "I haven't slacked off for a moment." Li Qingyang and the others, who had also obtained constitutions in the 10-directional life-ending tower, were mostly focused on cultivation now. They rarely focused on comprehending constitutions. After obtaining the primordial spirit body, he had been comprehending and strengthening it, because he still had to find his sister. How many people are there in total? Jun Changshao asked. Jiang Yi used his primordial spirit body to enter the formation. After checking all the warriors inside, he said, "There is a concealing formation in the east, west, south, and north. There are 200 warriors in each formation. There are 146 Huang, 50 Xian, and 4 Earth." So accurate? Jun Changshao said with a surprised expression. Yesterday, he went to the 2 strongholds, so it was normal for him to be targeted. However, you guys are hiding in the formation. Aren't you waiting to be wiped out by me? I've sinned. Jun Changshao said. Take out the field cannon and wipe out the little rats hiding in the dark. Yes. Xiao Ziji walked out of the stronghold and set up the field cannon. He then charged it with the crystal cores of the 9 heavens continent. The crystal cores in the 9-star Elder's spatial ring were very high level. It was enough to condense the rocket artillery shell. Now that he charged the Italian cannon, it would be awesome to shoot it out in one shot. In order to ensure that they were not discovered, when Xiao Ziji set up the cannon, Jun Changshao set up an isolation formation in advance. You hide. I'll hide. Everyone hide and seek. Hidden in the formation 100 miles away from the stronghold, a few Earth experts from the Crimson Sea continent were muttering. Old Gu, are the warriors of the Falling Star continent sure to come out? We have to wait even if we're not sure. This is the Palace Master's order. We're hiding in the invisibility formation. Won't they discover us? This formation was set up by the top formation masters from the continent, not to mention the low-level planes. Even the first-tier warriors of the 9 heavens continent might not be able to discover us. But I keep feeling that something is wrong. I keep having this ominous feeling. I think you're scared after learning that the Falling Star continent defeated the 9-star Elder of the 9 heavens continent. No, that's definitely not the reason. While the 2 Earth experts were talking, the old man standing at the side with his eyes closed all this time opened his eyes and said, There's news from outside. The warriors of the Falling Star continent have already come out of the stronghold. Very good, the scowling expert said solemnly. When they enter the encirclement, we'll charge out of the 4 formations together. No matter how high their cultivation is, they won't be able to escape. The Earth expert, who had been worried all this time, frowned more and more because the ominous feeling in his heart was getting more and more intense. Suddenly, a strong sense of danger surged up like a flood. Not good. Hurry up and leave. Boom. Before he could finish speaking, the formation barrier was instantly attacked by an external force and produced a huge spatial vibration. Then, it exploded on the spot. Huff huff. A huge mushroom cloud appeared in the sky above the red land. Li Qingyang and the others opened their hearing and looked at the scene before them. They were all surprised and said, The power of this cannon is much stronger than before. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, 4 flowing lights flew out of the explosion area and staggered on the ground. Although these Earth experts didn't die in the explosion of the cannonball and the formation, their clothes were torn, and they were in a sorry state. Whoosh, whoosh. More and more warriors of the Red Sea continent flew out of the explosion. Among them, there were black and yellow experts. Their situation was very bad. Some were covered in blood from the explosion, and some were unconscious. The power of the field cannon had been gradually developed to the limit. Although its killing range was large, the damage caused was not fatal, so it didn't cause a large number of deaths. Jun Changshao was very satisfied, because this cannon blast, combined with the explosion of the formation, had caused heavy damage to the Red Sea continent. Everyone. Jun Changshao took out a megaphone from his interspatial ring and shouted, Are you all okay? Are you all okay? Okay. Chapter 904. The concealment formation on the east side of the stronghold had been blown up, and the 200 martial artists of the Red Sea continent inside had suffered heavy casualties. The 4 Earth-level martial artists were only in a sorry state from the explosion, but they weren't seriously injured. However, the black and yellow level martial artists were unlucky, as they had almost lost their ability to fight. They had landed in such a state mainly because of the great damage caused by the explosion of the formation. Therefore, the Red Sea continent had invited a top-notch formation master from outside to set up a formation and hide it inside. But in reality, they had hidden it inside a bomb. They had dug a hole and jumped into it. Damn it! The 4 Earth-level martial artists calmed down and looked at Jun Changshao, who was holding a megaphone outside the stronghold. Their eyes flickered with anger, but they were also puzzled. How were we discovered? How did the formation explode? Swoosh! At this moment, the Purple King flew over quickly. Bang! Under the explosion of the purple aura, his clothes and pants were torn apart, and his cold eyes were filled with hostility. Jun Changshao had a mental breakdown. This guy would tear apart his clothes at the slightest provocation. Did his school uniform grow on the wind? It seemed that he needed to buy a set of clothes that were tough enough like red underwear from the store. Retreat, retreat, retreat. The 4 Earth-level martial artists hurriedly retreated in shock. If they joined forces with the other Earth-level martial artists in the formation to launch a sneak attack, they would have some confidence. However, they didn't have any courage to fight against a terrifying non-human in broad daylight. Hall Master Z had fought against 5 people by himself in the dimensional battlefield, just like how he had torn off his clothes and exposed his body. This was already deeply imprinted in the martial artists' hearts. Boom! Suddenly, a loud sound that made the space tremble was heard. The 4 fleeing Earth-level martial artists hurriedly turned around in shock, just in time to see the cannonball fly out with a trail of light behind it. Then it exploded in another concealment formation in the distance. Soon after, it brought about a dazzling explosion. At this moment, they finally understood why the formation had exploded. It turned out that it was because of this kind of energy. Die! The Purple King caught up from behind. Huff, huff! Purple waves of air erupted from his body and instantly spread over several miles, as if they had turned into roaring ferocious beasts. The 4 of them were aghast. They didn't have time to think, and hurriedly flew as fast as they could into the distance. In a plane where heaven-ranked powerhouses rarely appeared, Earth-ranked powerhouses were undoubtedly powerful existences. But now, they were frightened by a single person to the point of fleeing in panic. This scene was really a little comical. Trash! The Purple King saw that they were running rather quickly, and did not chase after them. Instead, he turned his head to look at the other Earth-ranked powerhouse who had been blasted out. The corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. The people who flew out from the other array were the experts from the Lingyun continent. When they saw the expression on the exposed maniac's face, they immediately panicked and ran away in fear. Buzz! Buzz! At the same time, the concealment formations in other directions were automatically dispelled, and the 400 experts hidden within them retreated at top speed. They were much smarter. After learning about the situation outside, they didn't wait for Xiao Zui to reload and fire before they slipped away. The Crimson Sea continent and the Lingyun continent joined forces. After some discussion, they decided to set up a concealment formation in the Falling Star continent's stronghold and send a large number of experts to hide in it. Then, they would launch a surprise attack when the Falling Star continent was unprepared. The plan was not bad. However, the concealment formation was too lousy. The Falling Star continent had discovered it as soon as they arrived at the battlefield. Now that the formations in 2 directions had been blasted apart, the plan to surround them from all sides had completely failed. They could only carry out Plan B and retreat quickly. Don't run. The Purple King turned into a stream of light and chased in 3 directions. He was extremely busy. He did not target the Earth-ranked experts. Instead, he focused on the Xian and Yellow-ranked cultivators. Pung, pung, pung. Palm prints, fist prints, footprints, and saber prints appeared frequently in midair. Those who did not manage to escape in time all unlocked various postures and landed on the ground. Because the level of the opponent was not high, the Purple King did not kill him. He only knocked him down and continued to attack the others. Whoosh, whoosh. Li Qingyang and the others quickly followed up and dealt with the cultivators who landed on the ground. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, colorful waves of air and energy bloomed on the battlefield. The Purple King was like a big bad wolf chasing a flock of sheep all over the mountain. You might not believe it if I told you. The two continents had a total of a few hundred people, and they were almost surrounded by an exhibitionist. A few minutes later, peace was restored outside the stronghold. Patriarch. After a round of inventory, Jiang Ye said, I killed more than 100. The rest all ran away. Jun Changshao said, give me all the spatial rings. Although he might not be able to get anything good from the bags, he still had to follow the principle of not letting go of anything. Moreover, he could also give the rings to his disciples to use. He was already so rich, yet he still cared about the spatial rings. Gosheng really knew how to live his life. Whoever wanted to marry him in the future, it was really impossible. Under the patriarch's guidance, the disciples would become experts at looting bags after every battle. Whoosh! The Purple King flew over from afar. As soon as he landed on the ground, he said angrily, those guys ran so fast. After recovering his strength, he always wanted to find a chance to fight with the earth-ranked experts. However, after just warming up on the battlefield, there was no one to play with him. Big brother, with your fighting style of surrounding N people by yourself, who would play with you? Their heads must have been kicked by a donkey. Don't worry, Jun Changshao said. The Nine Heavens continent will definitely come looking for trouble. When that time comes, you will definitely be able to fight to your heart's content. The Purple King said with a burning gaze. I hope you don't disappoint this king. The main purpose of coming to the plain battlefield today was to ambush the Shengxian continent and expand their stronghold. As soon as he left, he met someone who delivered rice. So Jun Changshao gave up on his original plan and decided to return to the Sect of all times. The main reason was that after this battle, many disciples had their heads in their accounts. If they were to go out and play, they would accidentally fall into the red name state. However, he had to do something before he left. Jun Changshao walked out of the stronghold and set up a lightning array within a few dozen miles. He didn't want the next time he came in, there would be another higher level array waiting to ambush him. So he took the initiative and buried mines outside. Let's go. After he was done, Jun Changshao brought everyone back to the sect. Before Li Qingyang left, he took another look at the stronghold that had expanded by quite a bit. He was even more eager to break through to the emperor level as soon as possible. The people of the Sect of all times left, leaving behind the sad Scarlet Sea continent and Lingyun continent. Especially the Jade Sea Palace master. When he learned that hundreds of people from both sides were being chased by an exposing maniac, he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. After returning to the sect, the disciples returned to their rooms to meditate as usual. Experiencing many actual battles and comprehending the emperor-level realm was of great help to them. Jun Changshao, after thinking about it again and again, decided to rest for a while and let the planes in the battlefield lower their guard before going over to cause trouble. Whoosh whoosh. A few days later, the aura of advancement appeared in the sky above the sect. Jun Changshao, who had just walked out of the spirit gathering array, looked in the direction and smiled. My second disciple has also broken through. Yes. Li Qingyang had broken through. He was able to do this because of a lot of actual battles and the hope to build the stronghold faster. The second disciple's breakthrough was just the beginning. In the following period of time, Xiao Ziji, Li Fei, Tian Qi, and the others had fully comprehended and touched the opportunity to break through, smoothly stepping into the first-grade Wu Huang from the peak of the martial king realm. As the number of emperor-level martial artists gradually increased, Jun Changshao's first consideration was to upgrade the sect from 4th rate to 3rd rate. Chapter 905. When Li Qingyang and the others entered the emperor stage, the sect of all times not only met the requirements in terms of strength, but also far exceeded them. However, they still needed 50,000 people, which was not reached yet. It was not a big problem. Currently, the number of disciples in the sect had grown to almost 40,000. If they lowered the recruitment standards every month, It would be easy to recruit 50,000 people. There's still plenty of time. There's no need to rush, Jun Changshao thought. He still insisted on walking the path of quality. He would rather have no disciples than have substandard ones. I still lack various resources to create more weapons and equipment to increase the overall strength of the disciples. The martial arts facilities of the sect of all times were gradually improving, and there were more of them. The disciples could break through quickly, but in real battles, equipment was often more important. The reason why Li Qingyang and the others were able to exchange blows with Emperor Realm experts and gain valuable combat experience was because of the True Yang set and the steel wings. Herbs, pills, ores, crystal cores, and even spirit stones are all lacking. Jun Changshao was now deeply aware that the increasing number of disciples in the sect required a lot of resources. Without a continuous supply of various resources, it would be difficult to upgrade the sect in a short period of time. In the past few years, the sect of all times had been developing very quickly, even faster than the rise of other large sections. However, because of the main mission and the existence of the bomb, he had to pursue faster, stronger, and more awesome. The pressure was great. It was so great that he did not have time to think about his future. Sometimes, Jun Patriarch was envious of those protagonists who could feed themselves and not have to worry about the entire sect. They were not like him, who had to manage the entire sect. Sigh. Sitting in the main hall, he looked up at the sky and said, "Is this what they mean by the more handsome a person is, the greater the responsibility?" After breaking through Wu Huang, Li Qingyang finally could not help but come to the study and said, "Patriarch, can I enter the stronghold to start construction now?" "Yes," Jun Changshao said. "However, I feel that it's time for the sect to expand. According to the rate of recruiting 1 to 2,000 people per month, they would be able to reach 50,000 in a few months. At that time, the level of the sect would increase, and the upper limit would also increase. Therefore, they had to plan ahead and expand their territory." Li Qingyang said, "This disciple has already prepared everything. I'm just waiting for the patriarch's order." Jun Changshao knew that his second disciple's hobby was architectural design, so he asked with interest, "Do you have any good plans?" "Yes." Li Qingyang took 2 steps forward and waved his hand to take out a large blueprint. Judging from the terrain depicted above, it should be the mountain range of the entire Ironbone Mountain region. In the Azure Sun County, there was a mountain range that wasn't very famous. It just so happened that it extended into the Azure Sun City and was connected to other cities. The Ironbone Mountain, that Jun Changshao arbitrarily named, and the area where hundreds of thousands of ferocious beasts lived were nothing more than the tip of the iceberg of the entire mountain range. Before sect leader Wang established the sect, it was even called a barren mountain by the world. "Patriarch," Li Qingyang pointed at a location on the blueprint and said, "Currently, there's no room for development in the area where the sect is located. We can expand to other mountains. There are more and more people in the sect. It's necessary to expand to other areas," Jun Changshao said. Swoosh. Li Qingyang took out another blueprint from his interspatial ring. It was still a drawing of the mountain range, but many areas were very carefully planned. There were even small annotations. It was very professional and very strict. "Patriarch," Li Qingyang pointed at a few locations on the blueprint and explained, "This disciple has already inspected these places. They are very suitable for construction. This disciple's initial plan is to build a few areas based on the number of halls in the sect." "Oh," Jun Changshao said in surprise. "You mean to separate the medicine hall, battle cavalry hall, spirit beast hall, and other halls from the outer courtyard, and have their own area for each person?" "That's right. That's a good idea." The current structure of the sect of all times was that there was a main hall in the outer courtyard, and the other halls were built around it. In the beginning, the level was low, and there were few people. Now that there were tens of thousands of disciples, and all the halls were in the outer courtyard, it was a little crowded. Dividing all of them, giving them their own mountains and corresponding facilities, as well as rooms for the members to live in. It was definitely a very good design concept. Jun Changxiao patted Li Qingyang's shoulder and said, Qingyang, your martial arts cultivation is definitely a big loss for the construction industry. It's decided then. We'll expand according to your blueprint. Li Qingyang was very happy to receive the patriarch's support. But he also said, Patriarch, these mountains should have a name, right? That's reasonable. Jun Changxiao thought for a while, then picked up a pen and wrote on the blueprint. The area of the outer courtyard's main hall was named the first main area, and the designed mountains were divided into sub-areas 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Li Qingyang's mouth twitched. Patriarch, isn't this a little too casual? A name is just a code name, it's easy to remember it. Jun Changxiao said. Li Qingyang, Jun Changxiao said. I'll leave the expansion to you. If you need funds, just say it. This is a big project. Li Qingyang said. I need to borrow the Patriarch's contract beast. No problem. Then I'll go and prepare first. Go. After watching Li Qingyang leave, Jun Changxiao touched his chin and said, When the sect reaches the level that Qingyang designed, will be considered to have entered the level of a top force in the true sense. What a pity. The system said. The mountain isn't high enough, it's not cool. This was what Jun Changxiao was most depressed about, and also the reason why the other areas were named as sub-areas 1, 2, and 3. Many large sects were located in the clouds of high mountains, and there were many tall and straight mountain peaks inside, and then built some more elegant names on them. Their geographical location was superior, and the environment was good, so they could naturally show off, but Mount Ironbone could not. Although the spiritual energy had been greatly improved in recent years, and it was more and more immortal, the overall height was not good, and it was not cool at all. It would be perfect if the mountain could be raised overall, and let the several areas planned by Qingyang become mountains that reach straight into the clouds. Jun Changxiao murmured. The system said, the host can browse the store. Maybe you can sell items that can improve the mountain. Fuck. Jun Changxiao broke down. So this is the real reason why you suddenly jumped out to attack me. That's right. The system said frankly. They were old acquaintances, and a straightforward person did not resort to insinuations. Although Jun Changxiao knew that this guy was deliberately instigating him to spend money, he was indeed tempted. His goal was to build the sect of all times into the strongest sect in the Falling Star continent, and to build Mount Ironbone into a martial arts holy land. It naturally had to be cool. This cool was often determined by the height. For a first-class sect like Taishan Shengzong, just climbing the stairs from the foot of the mountain to the gate was extremely long. Moreover, it was hidden in the sea of clouds. Not to mention looking from afar, even standing in the outer sect, gave people a feeling of being in a fairyland. Browse. The system said. This kind of item should be able to be obtained in the mid-level store. A qualified salesman needed to know what price the user could accept, and then from a seemingly rational point of view, he would entice them on a deeper level. Jun Changxiao, who was originally a little conflicted, hurriedly returned to his residence after hearing its words. After burning incense and bathing, he refreshed himself and pulled out the mid-level store. Buddha Jade Emperor Guanyin Bodhisattva, Tathagata Buddha, please bless me, please bless me. Chapter 906. Dong. Jun Changxiao leaned back in his chair, paralyzed. His expression was completely frozen. After a series of battles, he finally got his wish, and obtained a product called the Terrain Modification Instrument. However, it cost him 10,000 contribution points. Shua. Jun Changxiao covered his face with both hands and said, At least give me some low-level secret manuals or recipes. The system consoled him. At least you got the product you wanted. You didn't lose anything. You didn't lose anything. Jun Changxiao roared. What made him even more depressed and unable to accept was that the price of the terrain remodeling instrument was 5,000 contribution points. How could a tool that didn't help martial arts be sold at such a high price? The system knew that the host's emotions were unstable, so it immediately pretended to be dead. Sigh. After calming down, Jun Changxiao reluctantly spent 5,000 contribution points to buy the terrain remodeling instrument. This was a product similar to an eggshell. According to the introduction, if it was placed underground or in the mountains, it would increase the altitude for a certain period of time. I hope it won't disappoint me. Jun Changshao took the item and came to a marked area on the map of Li Qingyang. He pressed the start button, and words appeared on the small screen. Please confirm the altitude. Mount Everest is only 8,000 meters. Let's set it at 10,000 meters. DDD. Jun Changshao entered 10,000 meters. After confirming the altitude, the eggshell-like product suddenly extended many arms and placed them on the ground. The words "remodeling in progress" appeared on the screen. It can increase the altitude just like that? Jun Changshao was a little confused. He stayed in the same place for an hour and found that there were no changes in the surroundings. So he returned to the sect and entered the space-time secret realm to cultivate. Dragon Elephant Prajna Palm. Huff huff. In the secret realm, the power of the dragon elephant whizzed out. There were 20 of them, and the ancient aura they emitted was extremely powerful. Jun Changshao waved his hand to disperse the power and said with satisfaction, "Every time it increases by 5, it's actually not bad." Because of time constraints, he got up and left the space-time secret realm. But as soon as he walked out, his eyes widened because a mountain peak appeared in his vision. Fuck. With great effort, he raised his head and asked in shock, "What's going on?" The system said, "The mountain was modified by the terrain remodeling device." Jun Changshao naturally knew about this as well. However, only 3 days have passed in the outside world, while he was cultivating in the secret realm. Isn't this a little too fast? Patriarch. At this moment, Li Qingyang rushed over and said, "On the night you entered the space-time secret realm, there was an earthquake in the mountains, and then..." He pointed at the mountain peak and said, "It suddenly came out." That night, Jun Changshao's mouth twitched violently. Although the terrain remodeling instrument was expensive, its effect was very good. In just one night, it had turned a small hill into a huge mountain. "Qingyang, how's this place?" At the peak of the mountain, Jun Changshao smiled with his hands behind his back. "Not bad indeed." Li Qingyang scratched his head and said, "It's just that it's too high, and it's very steep, so there's no way to carve out a flight of stairs for disciples to climb up. It can be changed." Change. The next day, Li Qingyang stood at the back of the mountain, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. This was because the mountain peak, which was originally close to 10,000 meters, was half shorter and wider than yesterday. There was even a flight of stairs that spiraled upwards. "How's it now?" Jun Changshao asked. "Patriarch." Li Qingyang's mouth twitched, and he said, How did you do this?" Jun Changshao did not explain. He patted his shoulder and said, "Now that we have the mountain peak, I'll leave the construction to you. Don't let me down." "Yes," Li Qingyang said solemnly. That night, the sect of all times trembled like an earthquake again. The next day, the disciples stood at the mountain gate, looking at the endless flight of stairs that extended downwards, and they were all dumbfounded. With the terrain remodeling instrument, Jun Changshao raised the existing inner and outer courtyards. Looking up from the foot of the mountain, it was obvious that the mountain had been raised by at least 2,000 meters. If it was decorated with clouds, it would look even more impressive. The residents of Ironbone Town were also dumbfounded. Originally, they could see the Ironbone Mountain at the mountain gate at a glance. How did it rise so much overnight? Next, the sect of all times would shake every night, and the disciples gradually got used to it. "Senior brother," Li Fei said expressionlessly, "Look, another mountain peak has risen." This kind of emotional fluctuation, that did not even have the slightest twitch, appeared on the faces of every disciple. A few days later, several mountains that were more than 5,000 meters tall seemed to have risen out of thin air. There was a certain distance between them, but they were close to each other. From afar they looked like open palms. "Qingyang," Jun Changshao pointed at a few mountains and said, "Build according to your previous layout. Set up a hall on each mountain." "Yes," Li Qingyang said. "Do we really have to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for the names?" "Of course not." Jun Changshao flew up, gathered psionic energy on his fingers, and drew on the mountains. Shwa. Returning to their original positions, each mountain had a name. They were Drizzle Peak, War Cavalry Peak, Spirit Beast Peak, Discipline Peak. Li Qingyang's mouth twitched and said, "Isn't it just changing the word hall to peak?" Of course, there was also the most important main peak, which was the mountain that carried the main hall of the sect of all times. It was named Ironbone Peak. "Qingyang," Jun Changxiao said, "go and show your talent." Yes, Li Qingyang was already prepared. He immediately led a group of disciples and Peppa Boar to the nearest Drizzle Peak. For a time, all kinds of construction materials were frequently transported up. Almost divine energy. The height of the mountain peak was there, but clouds and mist had to be condensed halfway up the mountain. Jun Changxiao said, "The sect now has the strength to contend with the major sects. So, the isolation array in the place where the spiritual energy has recovered can be removed." Swoosh. Flying into the depths of the forest, he waved his hand and removed all the isolation arrays here. At first, Jun Changxiao was worried that it would be exposed, so he sealed the place where the spiritual energy had recovered, and then used the array to guide it in a small area. Now that all the arrays were removed, the pure heaven and earth attributes could no longer be suppressed and crazily spread in all directions. In just a few days, the height of Ironbone Peak increased, and spiritual energy gathered like clouds and mist. It looked like an otherworldly paradise. There was also a huge rock halfway up the mountain with the words "the strongest sect of all times" engraved on it. The inner peaks were still in full swing, but the facade had been completely sublimated. Every time the residents of Ironbone Town at the foot of the mountain saw the sect of all times hidden in the clouds and mist, they could not help but feel awe, especially the teenagers who had just arrived in the town and were preparing to participate in the recruitment assessment next month. When they saw the majestic Ironbone Peak, they secretly swore to pass the assessment and become a member. The huge change in the mountain range alarmed Xie Guangquan. When he rushed over, he saw the tall peaks and the sect of all times that seemed to be hidden in the spiritual energy. He subconsciously pinched his face and felt the pain. He said in a daze, "This is not a dream." More and more Azure Sun County cultivators heard the news. For a time, everyone rushed over. When they saw the changes in the sect of all times, they were all stunned like City Lord Xia. With the current prestige of the sect of all times, it was definitely worthy of such a fairyland-like sect. But who could tell them why the mountain's terrain suddenly changed? There were also pure heaven and earth attributes. It was obviously the place where the spiritual energy had recovered. Azure Sun County exploded. Southwest Yangzhou also exploded. Mu Changhong, Yi Tianxing, Situ Haohai, and the others heard the news and came over. When they saw the earth-shaking changes in the sect of all times, they stood in front of the mountain gate for a long time in a daze. Chapter 907. Since Mu Changhong, Yi Tianxing, and the others had come after hearing the news, they would definitely enter the sect of all times to visit. When they felt the pure heaven and earth attributes inside, as well as the majestic and tall mountains, they were once again deeply shocked. This sect that had risen from nothing had now changed its mountains and was filled with spirit energy. It already had the foundation of a major sect. Jun Patriarch. Sita Haoyan was puzzled. Why did the mountains suddenly change? Mu Changhong and Yi Tianxing were also puzzled. What made them even more puzzled was why there was such a strong spirit energy attribute in the mountains. Could it be the recovery of spirit energy? There had to be a process for recovery, and there had to be natural phenomena. Why did it suddenly appear? Strange. It was too strange. To be honest, Jun Changxiao explained. Ironbone Mountain is the foundation of the sect of all times. It was also a blessed land in ancient times, but it was sealed underground because of its gradual decline. For the past few years, I have been studying the ancient books and have learned the mysteries within them. With the magical powers left behind by my ancestors, I have finally been able to activate them once again. After the recovery of spirit qi, the landscape of the mountains has returned to its former state. Regardless of whether the other party believed it or not, he had to brag first. Although this explanation was very far-fetched, Mu Changhong and the others really could not understand why the Ironbone Mountain suddenly changed, so they could only reluctantly accept it. Jun Changshao was worried that they would continue to ask to avoid giving themselves away, so he changed the topic. "The three of you, why don't you stay for a meal?" Mu Changhong said in unison. "Then we'll be disturbing you." "Fuck. You didn't even bother to decline. Did you guys come to my sect on purpose to freeload?" Who didn't know that Lu Wanshur was the champion of the God of Cookery competition? Since they were here, they would definitely have a good meal before leaving. After the transformation, the sect of all times had indeed begun to gather its foundation. Although it was still very weak, and could not be compared to the top sects, it had officially entered the developed stage from the initial stage of development. Of course, the sea of clouds formed by the recovery of spiritual aura alone could not completely set off the style of a sect. Decorations had to be added to it continuously. Hall Masterly. Sitting inside the drizzle hall, Jun Changshao said, "Order the members of the purchasing hall to collect more precious plants, and then plant them on the various mountain peaks." "All right," Li Luoqiu quickly instructed. A large number of members of the purchasing hall went to the major cities to purchase all kinds of plants. The sect protecting Grand Formation needs to be expanded as well. Jun Changshao found Jin Dejuan, and the two of them came up with a new formation system. Every single mountain had its own sect protection formation. When they were linked together, not only could they be activated simultaneously, but they could also be activated individually. "Elder Jun," Jun Changshao said, "I'll leave the matter of the sect's grand formation to you." "Yes." Zhen Dejuan began to lead the members of the Array Formation Hall to get busy. The entire sect of all times was busy. Some were helping to transport construction materials, while others were helping to plant trees. The members of the various halls were not idle either. They were actively making preparations for the upcoming move to the mountain, especially Elder Wei. At this moment, he was leading Sun Bukong and the others to choose a location at the foot of Medical Peak to determine the location of a new medicinal garden. The spiritual energy was deliberately sealed previously, so it could only be developed in a fixed location. Now that it was all unlocked and gathered in the entire Ironbone Mountain, it was much more convenient to choose, and the scale was also larger. The War Cavalry Hall also chose a piece of land near their own mountain to build a playground for daily training. It could be said that the sect of all times had new changes every day, and it was improving every day. When the martial artists from the outside world learned that the Ironbone Mountain was a place of spiritual energy recovery, and the mountain had also changed, they all rushed to visit. Patriarch Ning Duxing said, "Recently, the number of tourists in the Ironbone town has increased." "That's normal." Jun Changshao was not surprised. Our sect of all times is considered a well-known sect in the Starfall continent. Naturally, it will attract a lot of attention. Pass down the order. He was silent for a moment and said, 7 days later, the sect will be open to the public. Anyone can come in and visit, but they have to pay 10,000 taels of silver. Ning Duxing was stunned. This kind of paying to come up and visit was a bit bold. "Have you heard? Soon, the sect of all times will be open to the public. As long as you pay 10,000 taels of silver, you can go in and visit as you wish." "Of course, I've already prepared the money. The spiritual energy on the mountain is lingering like a fairyland. It's definitely worth it to go in and visit." The martial artists from various provinces, who were temporarily living in the Ironbone town, and could only stand at the foot of the mountain to watch, were tempted. They did not care about 10,000 taels of silver at all. A few days later, thousands of people gathered at the foot of the Ironbone Mountain. After they paid the banknotes, they were led by Li Tian and other disciples into the sect of all times. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Just as they walked into the outer courtyard, the outer disciples were practicing in the martial arts field. When their auras burst out, they were so shocked that their faces changed greatly. So strong. These disciples are all high level. Everyone first visited the outer courtyard and the main hall, then the inner courtyard, until they visited a few mountains that were under construction. The whole process was in shock and awe. The abundant spiritual energy and the magnificent buildings made even some knowledgeable martial artists exclaim in their hearts. This sect of all times already had the style of a first-rate sect. Of course, there were also some martial artists who came to visit not to admire the magnificence of the sect of all times, but to observe the martial arts atmosphere of the sect. They decided that when their children reached adulthood, they would participate in the assessment regardless of whether they passed or not. Jun Changshao let them in not to use the sect of all times as a scenic spot to earn money, but to take the opportunity to promote it and let the world know more about the sect of all times. Then it would attract talented youths to sign up. The effect was very good. This month was a fixed day to recruit disciples. The number of people who signed up had increased by a lot, and there was no lack of talented youths. There were all kinds of geniuses in martial arts, swordsmanship, array formation, and medicine. After passing the assessment, they became disciples of the sect of all times. Junior brother, are you interested in joining the medical hall? Junior brother, with your long legs, you were born to be a member of the Drizzle Hall. Junior brother, do you want to ride a ferocious beast and roam the battlefield? If you want, come to our war cavalry hall. In the beginning, when new disciples entered the sect, Jun Changshao would assign them to each hall according to their talents. However, it was still a little troublesome, so he ordered them to recruit new members themselves. Therefore, every time after the recruitment assessment, people like Sun Bukong and Li Tian could be seen representing each hall at the outer yard's martial arts field, actively persuading new disciples. It's thriving. Jun Changshao, who was standing outside the main hall, looked at the order of the sect and smiled. Patriarch. Li Luoxia walked over and said, Little Mo just sent a message. Taishan Xingzong is preparing to organize people to go to Golden Scale Mountain to hunt a middle 9th rank spirit beast in a few days. Golden Scale Mountain? Jun Changshao said. That's a place more dangerous than the Yinling Mountains. Do first-rate sects like to court death so much? It was not that they wanted to court death, but this kind of activity to hunt ferocious beasts was common even for ordinary sects, let alone first-rate sections. It was not like the sect of all times. There were all kinds of secret realms, so the disciples did not go out to train. Li Luoxia said, This hunting operation is organized by Taishan Xingzong's elder group. Some of the outer disciples will go, and little Mo was also chosen. Oh, Jun Changshao touched his chin and said, They are going to hunt a spirit beast comparable to a peak emperor-level spirit beast, and they are bringing outer disciples. Are they going to die, or do they value them and let them experience a big scene? Li Luoxia said, They should value them. After all, not everyone can follow the elders to hunt high-level spirit beasts. Confirm the number of people and their overall strength. For peak emperor-level elders and 6 outer disciples. Among them are Sun Yingquan and Xia Shuiyan, who have a good relationship with little Mo. This lineup is more than enough to deal with a middle 9th rank spirit beast, but it will be troublesome if something unexpected happens. Jun Changshao put his hands on his forehead and ran his fingers through his hair. His voice became old as he said, At that time, this old man will have to come out personally to save the situation. Ding! Your good friend Elder Jun Tian is online. Chapter 908. Last time, he sent the Purple King to the Yinling Mountains incident and almost messed it up. So this time Jun Changshao decided to do it personally. Acting. He was a professional. After Su Xiaomo received the information, he immediately relaxed. Previously, a group of pig teammates almost caused him to be unable to act. Now that the patriarch was personally doing it, there would definitely be no problem. He could even take the opportunity to learn a thing or two. Gosheng, what are you thinking about? Sun Yingquan asked. Su Xiaomo scratched his head and said, I'm thinking about going to Golden Scale Mountain to hunt spirit beasts tomorrow. Sun Yingquan smiled and said, This is a big battle. It's inevitable that you'll be nervous. But don't worry, with 4 elders following you, there won't be any accidents. Okay. Su Xiaomo nodded. He thought to himself, If there are no accidents, how can I climb up? Let's go to the cafeteria. Okay. The two of them arrived at the cafeteria and saw that Xia Shuiyan had already taken the food and was eating at her usual seat. Damn, Sun Yingquan said. This woman took my seat again. As he said that, he pushed Su Xiaoma forward and said, Your chance is here. Take the initiative, brother will help you get the food. There were more and more rumors about the two of them in the outer sect. Naturally, he also heard about it and tried to matchmake them whenever he had the chance. He even said, Go Sheng, if you can melt this iceberg, I'll call you brother in the future. Su Xiaoma walked over awkwardly. Although there are elders protecting us at Golden Scale Mountain tomorrow, we have to be careful in case we become a burden. Xia Shuiyan said lightly. Okay. Su Xiaoma grunted in response. Not long after, Sun Yingquan brought the food over. Although the two of them sat very close to each other, they did not speak during the whole process. This guy. Sun Yingquan was speechless. Can't he take the initiative? Su Xiaoma also wanted to take the initiative, but when facing a girl with a cold personality, the more he took the initiative, the more vigilant she would be, so he could only deliberately keep his distance. Bubbly foam, based on what you've told me, I can roughly deduce that she's a cold-hearted girl. If you want her to have a good impression of you, you have to follow the following 3 conditions. To prevent single-birth dog from hearing and learning anything about Elder Wei's feelings, he automatically kept it a secret. Senior sister, Su Xiaoma said, I'm going to cultivate. Xia Shuiyan watched him leave without saying a word. After leaving the cafeteria, Su Xiaoma entered the spirit chi array and chose a cultivation room. He then took out the natural spirit stones and started absorbing them. Although his realm was gradually pulling away from Li Qingyang and the others, fortunately, the patriarch had given him a large amount of martial arts resources, allowing him to make a qualitative improvement in a short period of time. I'm still far from breaking through to the peak of Martial King. After absorbing more than 10 spirit stones, Su Xiaoma walked out and thought to himself, if I can enter the inner sect, there should be better martial arts resources. Taishan Shengzong did not have the monstrous talent of the sect of all times that could allow disciples to make rapid progress in their realm, but the inner sect's resources were still incomparable to other sections. However, to obtain these resources, one had to become an inner sect disciple. I hope this trip to Golden Scale Mountain will allow me to reach a higher level in Taishan Shengzong. If I can enter the inner sect, because of this, it'll be even better. Su Xiaoma thought to himself. Sect of all times study room. Li Qingyang came to report yesterday's construction as usual, but just as he walked in, he saw a silver-haired old man in a long robe, standing in front of the window with his hands behind his back. So he asked warily, Who are you? Old man Jun Tian. The old man turned around with a kind face. Li Qingyang said in shock. Sect. Patriarch. That's right. This old man who looked like he was in his 70s or 80s was Jun Changxiao's disguise with the magic modification mask. How is it? Jun Changxiao asked in an old voice. Li Qingyang's mouth twitched and said, If the patriarch didn't use his original voice just now, I wouldn't have been able to tell. Ha ha ha. Jun Changxiao stroked his beard and laughed. His mannerisms were completely that of an old man. As an actor, he would definitely look like whatever he acted. If he were to be the ambassador of the NBA now, he would definitely max out his basketball skills and improvise on the spot. Hello everyone, I'm Jun Changxiao, a trainee who transmigrated for 5.5 years. I like to sing, dance, show off, brag, music. Qingyang. I'm going out for a while, so I'll leave the sex matters to you. Jun Changxiao's tone and tone were still that of an old man. It was obvious that he had truly gotten into character. At this moment, he was no longer the patriarch of the sect of all times, nor was he Go Sheng. Instead, he was old man Jun Tian who had lived a carefree life. Yes, Li Qingyang said. That day, Jun Changxiao waved his sleeves and flew out of the sect of all times like a reclusive expert. He didn't go alone. He brought the King of 100 Hills with him. He originally planned to bring the Purple King, but that guy's acting skills were terrible. It was more reliable to bring his own contracted beast. At the same time, in the faraway Taishan Shengzong, Su Xiaoma had also followed a few elders to Golden Scale Mountain. The two Goshungs were about to meet. Let's wait and see. Golden Scale Mountain, a famous mountain in the Starfall continent. There were many ferocious beasts and spirit beasts in the mountain. It was the best choice to go out and seek death. After traveling for a few days, Su Xiaoma stopped at the foot of the mountain with 4 elders. Xia Shuiyin and Sun Yingquan were among them. He didn't expect the outer sect disciples to help in hunting high-level spirit beasts. He mainly wanted them to experience the big scene. Gosheng, I'm a little nervous. When they stopped at the foot of the mountain, Sun Yingquan felt the pressure of the violent aura. His eyes were filled with fear. Su Xiaoma said, "It's fine. There are 4 elders here." Seeing that his expression didn't change, a look of admiration appeared in the elder's eyes. Previously in the Yunling Mountains, he had already proved that he was brave and had good talent. If he was nurtured well, he would definitely be a good seedling. All of you listen up. An elder said. After entering the mountain, you must follow closely behind us. Don't leave without permission, and don't attack without permission. Yes, Su Xiaoma and the others shouted in unison. Let's go. 2 elders led the way in front, 2 elders at the back, and 6 outer sect disciples walked in the middle. Then they walked up the stairs. Roar, roar. When they were halfway up the mountain, they vaguely heard the roar of a ferocious beast. It's definitely a spirit beast. Among the 6 outer sect disciples, only Su Xiaoma and Xia Shuiyin could remain calm. The other 4 were all on tenterhooks. Even their palms were sweating. Roar. At this moment, a few agile ferocious beasts rushed out from the left and right sides. Judging from the aura they emitted, they had obviously reached the king's stage. Boom. Boom. The 2 elders' auras erupted and formed various palm prints to deal with the incoming ferocious beasts. The unexpected situation was quickly resolved. However, the outer sect disciples were already trembling in fear. They were obviously shocked. Even Xia Shuiyin subconsciously took 2 steps back when the spirit beasts rushed out. Among the group of outer sect disciples, only Su Xiaoma stood still. He didn't even frown when the elders dealt with the spirit beasts. Not bad. The 4 elders were even more satisfied. This kind of mentality that could remain calm, even if the Mount Tai collapsed in front of him, would definitely be a person who would achieve great things in the future. Let's go. The group continued to walk up the mountain. After about a few hundred steps, they reached the top of the mountain. The top of the Golden Scale Mountain was still covered with dense forests. Not only were there ferocious beasts, but there were also birds. Whoosh! A cold wind blew over, emitting a vicious aura that made people shudder. Roar! Suddenly a tiger roar was heard. A tiger covered in purple electric arcs flew out from afar. There was a faint trace of thunder element in the air. Purple electric spiritual tiger. The gazes of the 4 elders were suddenly filled with passion. The purple electric spiritual tiger was a rare thunder element ferocious beast in the falling star continent. It would be awesome if they could tame it. Chase! Don't let it escape. Whoosh! 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 In an instant, 3 elders chased after the purple electric spiritual tiger. As for the other elder, he stayed behind to protect the outer sect disciples. Purple electric tiger. Su Xiaoma thought to himself. The patriarch is here. Roar! Roar! Suddenly, a series of angry roars came from the forest. The mountain shook. Whoosh! 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 A moment later, a group of ferocious beasts appeared. One of them was at the peak of the emperor level. It was covered in golden fur. Oh no! The elder who was protecting the outer sect disciples was shocked. The golden spirit beast was the target of their hunt this time. However, they hadn't even reached its territory yet. So why had it suddenly appeared here and summoned so many helpers? 2 hours ago. Roar! In the depths of the Golden Scale Mountain, the Golden Scale spiritual beast fell to the ground in pain. The King of 100 Hills stood on its head with a murderous look in his eyes. Little guy, Jun Changshao, who had transformed into a silver-haired elder, sat in the distance and asked, "Do you want to be my contracted beast?" Yes, yes. I'll be your contracted beast. The golden scale spiritual beast was terrified. Putting aside the fact that this human's aura was very strong, just the fact that the King of 100 Hills had defeated it with one hand made it realize that this human's strength was far above its own. Relax. Jun Changshao walked over and placed one hand on the golden scale spiritual beast's head. Then, he began to communicate with it through their souls and established a master-servant contract in a very short time. If he had come alone, it would not have been easy to tame a spiritual beast at the peak of the emperor level. However, with the King of 100 Hills by his side, things were much easier. Soon the elites of the Taishan Shengzong will come to kill you. Once they're here, listen to my orders, Jun Changshao said. Taishan Shengzong? The golden scale spiritual beast's eyes were filled with anger. This human sect would come to the golden scale mountain every other year to cause trouble. They did not take the king of the mountain seriously at all. Master, it said seriously. I'll listen to you. Not long after, the people of the Taishan Shengzong arrived. After they went up the mountain, Jun Changshao summoned the purple lightning tiger cub and deliberately lured the elders away. Then he ordered the golden scale spiritual beast to mobilize its subordinates and attack Su Xiaoma and the others. 100 Hills. Go and meet the 3 elders. Yes. Remember, don't kill them. Just cause them some trouble. Yes. The King of 100 Hills immediately went into the forest. Strange, why is it gone? The purple lightning tiger shouldn't have run so fast. The 3 elders of the Taishan Shengzong searched for half a day in the depths of the forest, but they still could not find the purple lightning tiger cub, because it had already gone into the sect leader's ball. The 3 of you. Suddenly, a hunchbacked old man walked out of the dark mountain and smiled eerily. What are you looking for? The 3 elders of the Taishan Shengzong looked at him, and instantly determined that he was not a human. He was a spiritual beast that had already achieved human form, so they all became alert. Hee hee. The King of 100 Hills laughed eerily. The Golden Scale Mountain is where my kind lives. Since you have trespassed, don't even think about leaving alive. Whoosh whoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, he released a violent aura around him and quickly approached one of the Taishan Shengzong elders. Boom. Because of his fast speed and powerful strength, the elder could only take a defensive stance with difficulty before he was sent flying by the punch. Seeing this, the other 2 elders were shocked. I'm afraid this beast is no weaker than a half-sage. The King of 100 Hills turned around and punched at them with 2 ghastly fists. Boom! Boom! The other 2 elders couldn't dodge at all, and were directly sent flying. The King of 100 Hills could easily defeat the 3-peak stage Wu Huang, but his master had ordered him to only send them flying. Retreat! One of the elders who had steadied himself shouted in a deep voice. The beast's strength made them realize the seriousness of the situation. They quickly used their movement techniques to retreat, but the King of 100 Hills stopped them and began to attack wildly. Boom! Boom! In an instant, the 3 elders were beaten to a sorry state, and they were beaten to the point of retreating step by step. Of course, they could not figure out why there was a half-sage spiritual beast in the Golden Scale Mountain. Could it be that it had something to do with the Purple King breaking the seal? Boom! The King of 100 Hills attacked again. The 3 elders could not fight back. They staggered backward and spat out blood. The situation was that they could not defeat the beast and could not escape. They could only be ravaged. Die! The King of 100 Hills opened his 10 fingers and formed 10 ghastly finger beams that tore through space. We're doomed. The 3 Taishan Shengzong elders were in despair. Swoosh! Seeing that the bursting finger light was tearing through the space, a stream of light flew over from afar. An extremely thick defensive air wall instantly condensed in front of them, protecting all of them within it. Ding! 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 After a series of clanging sounds, the energy from the 10 fingers dissipated. The 3 elders of the Xian sacred sect, who thought they were going to die for sure, were all stunned on the spot, because a silver-haired old man had appeared out of thin air in front of them. Who is this? Old man, the King of 100 Hills said angrily. It's you again. His emotions were on point. His acting skills were superb. "The three of you," the silver-haired elder asked, "are you okay?" I'm fine." One of the elders calmed down and said, "Thank you for saving us." The silver-haired elder looked at the king of 100 Hills and said, "Get lost." Whoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, a powerful aura burst out. It contained both martial arts and swordsmanship. It was powerful and as sharp as a sword. The three elders of the Taishan sacred sect behind him were immediately blown by the power of the sword martial arts, until their black hair fluttered wildly, and they couldn't even open their eyes. "Oh my God! This person is a dual cultivator." Judging from his aura, he is definitely at the level of a half-sage. An expert. An absolute expert. It was common to see people at the level of Wu Sheng on the Starfall continent. However, it was rare to see someone at the level of a half-sage in swordsmanship. The great king of 100 Hills took the brunt of his master's explosive sword and martial arts attacks head-on. His expression was ferocious as he retreated step by step. In the end, he pretended to be frightened and hurriedly turned around to flee. Swoosh! Jun Changshao retracted his aura and said, "You are safe now. Thank you for saving us, senior." The three Taishan Xingzong elders hurriedly cupped their fists and said. At first, they addressed him respectfully. However, when they realized that he was a half-sage in both swordsmanship and swordsmanship, their attitude changed drastically. Jun Changshao said, "Your companions and the young people who came with you are being attacked by beasts. Why don't you go and help them?" "What?" The three elders' expressions changed. They quickly released their spiritual thoughts. As expected, their elders were fighting with the golden Qilin spirit beast outside the forest. The outer disciples were also surrounded by the beasts. They were in a precarious situation. "Sigh." Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "The three of you are also injured. You may not be able to defeat that beast. I'll do it for you." Whoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared. The three elders looked at each other and hurriedly flew over while suppressing their injuries. When they arrived at the area where they had just reached the top of the mountain, the beasts were all gone. The golden Qilin spirit beast had also escaped. The elder stared at the silver-haired old man who had suddenly appeared and scared the beasts away. Phew! The three of them breathed a sigh of relief. Although there were unexpected changes in a short time, fortunately, there were no casualties. Plop! Suddenly, Su Xiaoma knelt on the ground in the distance. His body and hands were trembling as if he was frightened. The four elders frowned. Wasn't this guy very strong-willed? How could he be so scared after experiencing this battle that his legs went soft, and he knelt down? "Go Sheng," Sun Yingquan whispered. "Stand up quickly." A trace of confusion appeared in Xia Shuiyun's eyes. At the same time, a trace of disappointment appeared. Su Xiaoma completely ignored his fellow disciples and elders. He kowtowed to the silver-haired old man with a kind face, and cried out loudly with tears streaming down his face. "Master! That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.